What's going on, everybody? What's going on? It's your man Louie T here with a brand new installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Sorry for the later show. Wanted to do this 2 days ago, but the factors and the powers that be would not allow them to take place or allow this to take place. But I've decided for this historic 500th episode of the Louie T Network podcast to cut the draft breakdown in half. Because what I realized is, one, I'm tired. Two, I would be here all night doing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the first 16 teams, and then we will get the other 16 on the next episode of the podcast. So this will be a two-parter. So in saying that, let me go ahead and put that disclaimer out. With that said, you're tuned in to the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Louie T Network podcast, episode 500. Yes, we've made it to our 500th episode. It's a milestone episode. Shout out to all of you who have been with me for the vast majority of these episodes. I'm excited about the first 500 and even more excited about the next. So cheers to me on 500. Cheers to you for supporting me to help me get to 500. And here's to 500 more. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to the proceedings this evening. And today's going to just be one big, gigantoid gem dropping session where we essentially go through the draft and what teams did and how I felt about their drafts, so forth and so forth. So we're just going to go in the order alphabetically, and we're going to go through these drafts. I'm going to tell you how I feel about these drafts and what I think these teams have effectively done with the haul that they were able to bring in the 2025 NFL draft. Honestly, if you had picks in rounds 1 through 4, you should have come away with at least a bare minimum of 2 starters. Really, if you had a pick in every round from rounds 1 through 4, you should have come away with 4 starters. If you did it right. If you did it right. If you had 3 picks in the first 4 rounds, you should have come away with 3 starters. If you did it right. If you had 6 picks in the first 4 rounds, you should come away with at least 4 starters if you did it right. Possibly 5, maybe even 6. If you had 8 picks in the first 4 rounds, you get where I'm going with this. You should have come away with at least 4 starters. Possibly 5, maybe 6. You've got to hit the lotto to get 7 or 8. But If you had picks in the first 4 rounds, you had a chance to really enhance your roster significantly. And depending on what position you were drafting, you could have found a starter at running back, at edge, at defensive tackle, offensive line, interior wise. You could have found yourself a starter in the 5th, 6th, potentially the 7th round, depending on what position you were drafting. So it's one of those drafts where there wasn't a lot of blue chippers, but man, were there a lot of starters that you could have come away with if you did it right. So let's talk about this draft, and let's talk about what these teams did. So we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals, and we're going to go through their draft quickly. Arizona's a funny team because you really don't know what to make of them. They're a team that for a lot of last season was in the mix to be a playoff team and then just absolutely collapsed down the stretch. First pick, the crazy part is first pick, Walter Nolan. I thought he was the most talented defensive tackle in the entire draft. Then your second pick is Will Johnson. Unbelievable to get these two guys in the same draft class without having 2 first-round picks, right? If you would have asked any of us a week ago, and the draft was a week from today, right? Or a week ago today. If you would have asked us a week ago today, could you get Walter Nolan and Will Johnson in the same draft class without trading back into the first round? You would have gotten an emphatic no from every single one of us. To get Walter Nolan and Will Johnson in the first and second rounds, respectively, feels like thievery of the highest order. Now, obviously, Will Johnson had a knee issue that teams were concerned about, which is what attributed to his fall to the second round. Also, I think there were questions about his speed and his the lack thereof. He did not run a 40 before the draft. I think that turned some teams off as well. But based off of the pedigree, the length, the speed, or the ball production, I think you would have been able to overlook the fact that he might be a 4 or 5 guy if the knee didn't scare you, right? If the knee checked out. So the Cardinals are rolling the dice here, but if you get 4 good years of Will Johnson, it's worth it, right? It's worth it. So you get 3 good years of Will Johnson, it's worth it. So you love the first 2 selections. I am not a fan of the 3rd selection of Jordan Birch, edge out of Oregon, but to each its own. Like, you know, their head coach, maybe Jonathan Gannon may be able to get the most out of Jordan Birch. I'm just not a fan of his. And we all have types. We all have, you know, certain traits that we're looking for, and he just doesn't fit the DNA profile that I look for in an edge. But he may be a really good fit for them. We'll see. But he's not my cup of tea. Cody Simon, linebacker out of Ohio State, solid football player. Going to come in there, add his name to the mix. Remember, they did not bring back, as far as I'm concerned, to my knowledge, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think they brought back the linebacker that Jonathan Gannon brought over from Philadelphia with him that was previously with the Chargers. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. And he actually played really well for them. So they could use some help at the linebacker position. So this Cody Simon selection makes some sense. Denzel Burke is an interesting pick, man. When you look at Denzel Burke, I don't know of a player was Kaiser White. Thank you, Casper the Barbarian. Kaiser White. I don't think they re-signed Kaiser White. So there's a void at linebacker for them. So they could use some more depth. I think Simon's going to provide them with that. If you ask me, what one player, based off of tape alone, not injury concerns, not, off the field issues, any of that. If you just ask me what one player had his stock affected the most by on field play this season, I'd tell you it was Denzel Burke. This time last year, we were talking about this man as a first round corner. And he looked like the next corner in a long line of corners that have come out of Ohio State that are either going to be a first or a second round pick. And then he got cooked in 2024. That Oregon game, the first one, is as nasty as it gets. He was getting worked over by every and any Oregon receiver. Shit, if I would have put on an Oregon jersey that day, I might have been able to get a couple of catches off for about 60 yards on Denzel Burke. He was getting worked in that game. It was not a great year for him by his standards, and it hurt him. You see where he got selected. This was a guy, again, this time last year, we were talking about Denzel Burke is no worse than a second-round pick, but a lot of people thought he'd be a first-round corner. This is where he should have gone in the 5th round. But if they can get him to play more like the freshman Denzel Burke, even the 2023 version of Denzel Burke, they may have something here. They may have stolen a gem here in the 5th, but make no mistake about it, he got what he deserved based on the 2024 tape. 6th round, Hayden Conner, guard out of Texas. I talked about interior offensive linemen. You could find yourself a starter, all the way through rounds 1 through 7. It was that deep. Interior defensive line, interior offensive line, and running back were the 3 deepest positions in this draft class, and you could find yourself a starter at all 3 of those positions from rounds 1 through 7. Edge, I think I felt comfortable in the 5th round. I don't think I felt comfortable after the 5th round. There was still some really good stuff in the 5th. By the time you got to the 6th round, not so much. But interior D and offensive line and running back, there was depth throughout. And Hayden Conner is one of those guys at the guard position where he didn't allow a single sack this past season. No, he's not a tremendous athlete, but he's good enough. He's a functional athlete, very stout, uses his hands well, doesn't allow guys to bull rush him. What will beat him at the NFL level will be quickness, but he was always able to find a way to stay in front of his man at Texas, and I think he's going to be a really solid offensive lineman in this league. If not a starter, he'll be tremendous depth for many years to come, I believe. I think he can start in this league. So to get a guy like that in the 6th round, you got to feel good if you're the Arizona Cardinals. And then Katan Crawford, safety out of Nevada, 7th round pick. You know how I am about 7th round picks. Usually not a massive fan of 7th rounders. Look, you roll the dice, you throw a dart at the board, you hope it sticks. He's one of those guys. He'll get an opportunity to compete. We'll see what he does. But overall, I think this is a fantastic draft, right? To get Walter Nolan and Will Johnson, you're talking about, I would imagine on most people's top 100 board, right? Their big board. I would imagine that Walter Nolan and Will Johnson are both in the top 25, no worse than top 30 of everyone's big boards. And I would probably say more likely than not, top 20. Both of those guys are talents in this draft. They're among the best at their respective positions. Nolan is the best defensive tackle in this draft, if you ask me, from a talent perspective. Will Johnson has the traits other than the speed, which is a question mark, but the ball production, the size, the length. I don't love his, demeanor as a tackler, but you're willing to overlook some of those things because this guy can take the football away, and his eyes are elite. His ability to stick his foot in the ground and drive on the football is elite. Anything underneath, I'll take Will Johnson. It's when you get further and further away from the line of scrimmage, I worry because I think you can get on top of him. as a receiver. But all in all, I like those first. I don't like. I love those first two picks. Absolutely love them. I'm not a big fan of Jordan Birch. Simon and Denzel Burke are very solid picks in the mid rounds from Ohio State. I think Hayden Connor could be a starter in 2 to 3 years at guard, and so this is a really good draft. When you look at what they've done and you assess what has been done here, you could be walking away with every bit of 5 to 6 starters. And that's what I'm talking about. Remember, I said if you got a pick in each of the first 4 rounds, you should come away with no less than 3 starters, but you should come away with 4, right? Walter Nolan is going to be a starter. Will Johnson is going to be a starter. Jordan Birch is going to be a starter. And Cody Simon, at one point or another, will probably be a starter. If not, Denzel Burke at some point will be a starter for them. And I think Hayden Connor's going to start for them at some point. So, again, they could easily come out of this thing with 6, but the number is 4, and you got 3, no doubt about it, starters in the first 3 rounds. So that was a really good draft for the Arizona Cardinals as they continue to try to fight to be relevant in a tough NFC West division. Falcons had a very Commanders-like draft. Bread, eggs, cheese, milk, as I like to call it. Only 5 selections. So, and this was their doing in this draft. You know, in the case of the Commanders, they traded away picks to acquire players via, the trade deadline last year and then this offseason. So that's why they were reduced to 5 selections. For the Falcons, they gave away picks for this year and next year to come back up and double up at the edge rusher position. Look, make no mistake about it. The Atlanta Falcons have been the worst pass rushing team in the NFL for the better part of a decade. I always joke about them not having real consistent pass rush since the John Abraham days. How far back is that? When's the last time John Abraham blessed a football field in the NFL? It's been a long time. I know that in 2016, they got a big year out of the Clemson edge rusher. Oh, man. Man, his name was right there on the tip of my damn tongue. I can see his damn face. Vic Beasley. And that was 2016. I don't know if they've had a double-digit sack getter since Vic Beasley broke out in 2016 for 1 year. It's been bad. I saw a stat somewhere. I don't remember where, but it said since 2019, I believe, is the number, I think. 2017, 2018, 2019, one of those years. It's got to be. Let me do some quick math in my head. Say 50, 50, 50, 50. 50. It's 250. Let's say 2018. I'm going to throw 2018 out there. Since 2018, every team in the league has at least 198 sacks. The Atlanta Falcons are the only team in the league to not hit that threshold. Not only are they the only team to not hit 198 sacks, they're under 198 by 25. Like, I think they're at 163. So 35 sacks by 35 sacks. Like, the next closest team is 35 sacks away from them. Let that sink in. Like, they've been so inept getting to the quarterback. So I get that they said, to hell with this shit. We're sick of this, right? So they go out, they get Jalen Walker from Georgia, off the ball linebacker that can rush the quarterback. And I think everybody feels like his home at the next level is going to be a guy that you just turn loose after the quarterback. Everyone's looking for some form of Micah Parsons. They're hoping he could be something along those lines. I don't know if he's that, but they're looking to see if he can be a disruptor, right? James Pierce Jr., they trade back into the first round, which is what really shortened their draft this year. to get him the very polarizing edge out of Tennessee. Another guy that is lightning quick off the edge, and when he's locked in and when he's right, physically, mentally, one of the most explosive pass rushers we've seen come into the league probably in the last 2 years or so. Really explosive first step. And so they hope they've solved their edge rushing woes, right? With those two guys. I was more impressed with what they were able to do with their next two picks. So they doubled up on edge, double up, then they doubled up on safety with two of the better safeties in this draft. In Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame, a guy that just finds the football, a guy that's always around the ball. He's just one of those dudes that's just a football player. You know, wherever the action is, you'll find Xavier Watts. And guys that insert themselves into plays and find themselves where the action is, good things generally happen for them. And that's why a guy like Xavier Watts, takes the football away, because he's always where the action is. Then they get Billy Bowman Jr., who was I thought he was the second best safety in this draft class. Second best safety in this draft class. To me, they get him in the 4th round. Love his athletic profile. Love his ability to run. I love him down around the line of scrimmage. I think he can run with every tight end in the league. I think he can run with a number of guys in the nickel. Size, not the biggest guy, and I think that's probably what knocked him down some boards, to be honest with you. But love Billy Bowman Jr. and all the things you can do with him on the defensive side of football. And then in the 7th round, they got a tackle in Jack Nelson, and we'll see how he pans out. But when you look at the profile of this draft, it's, again, short and sweet, to the point. And I love what they did. I mean, I felt like there were other positions that maybe they needed to address. Maybe you needed to add a corner, I thought, but so be it. Jack Nelson, your final pick in the 7th round. Really solid draft by the Atlanta Falcons. Not a lot of diversity, right? 2 edges, 2 safeties, but man, did they get some quality football players. And what did I just say? They had 5 picks. They had 5 picks. 4 of them are probably going to end up being starters for them at some point during their rookie contracts, right? You obviously know the 2 edge rushers they drafted in the 1st round this year are going to start for them at some point this year. Maybe not week 1, both of them start. But at some point, those 2 guys are going to be on the field for them in year 1 as rookies. And then you got to assume one of those 2 safeties is going to start this year, if not both of them. My guess is one of them starts. They still have Jesse Bates III, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't expect both of them to start, but you never know. They could have a 3 safety look, right? And Bowman allows you to do that because he's got kind of a hybrid nickel type of safety. So they could easily have a 3 safety look. So you move on to the Ravens, and it was a very busy draft, as you can see, for the Baltimore Ravens. It's one of those drafts that I talked about where you could find a ton of value, and that's what they aim to do, and that's what I felt like they were able to do. So let's go through this thing quickly. Malachi Starks, 1st round pick. They were really disappointed in what they got out of Williams, the safety that they got from Marcus Williams, the safety that they got from New Orleans. Spent a lot of money on Marcus Williams, and he just didn't deliver what they thought they were getting. They're hoping Malachi Starks will deliver what he didn't, right? Really good pick, obviously. Upgrade that safety position. You play him next to Oh man, what's the safety from Notre Dame? Shit. I never remember his name, and that's a shame because I'm a Notre Dame fan. I can't never remember his name. But that feels like a great pairing. Those two. You play him, Kyle Hamilton. Thank you. You play Kyle Hamilton down around the line of scrimmage, allow him to just be a nuisance, right? Just a game wrecker, blitz, underneath coverage, play the run, run with tight ends down the field. And then you got Malachi Starks can play single high safety, and that'll allow Kyle Hamilton to be maximized. So it makes sense. Second round, getting Mike Green is a steal. Obviously, we know the off the field question marks and concerns, which is what allowed him to fall all the way to 59 overall. But make no mistake about it, this is a massive steal. You could argue he is the most polished, ready to go, out of the packaging edge rusher in this entire draft class. You could argue that from a skill set standpoint, from a move Rolodex standpoint, fluidity, all of it. One of the things the Ravens have lacked consistently is edge play, right? They've gotten some play here and there from different guys. Their defensive tackles have been really good. Namni Matabike has been exceptional for them. He was, especially 2 years ago. You had Clowney there a couple of years ago when the defense was really good. He was really good for them that year. You had a Daffy Owe step up. He had double-digit sacks this year, so he's really starting to come into his own. But they could never have two guys doing it at once. Now they may have that with the Daffy Owe and Mike Green. So it's a hell of a pickup. Emory Jones, I thought, was one of the better tackles in this year's draft class out of LSU. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do with him, whether they, play him inside initially, and then if a spot opens up at the tackle position, he goes outside. Because right now it feels like they drafted him to play guard. He'll provide depth at tackle, and if need be, he can go out there. But right now it feels like they have their two tackles in Roger Rosengarten and the tackle that they re-signed this offseason that a lot of people thought they were going to allow to walk out of Notre Dame. So he's probably being selected to play guard initially. They allowed one of their guards to leave in free agency. Jones is versatile enough to do it. I thought he was going to get a chance to play tackle at the NFL level, but we'll see what happens. Still love that pick. Teddy Buchanan, one of the more athletically gifted linebackers in this entire draft class. A guy that just pops on tape when you watch him. Ran a 4.6 at the combine. I think he had the most reps of 2.25. So, a guy that just he killed it. Jumped like 40 inches on the vert. He's a freaky athlete, and you can see it on tape when you watch him. He's twitchy. So he kind of fits that Baltimore Raven, right, role. So Carson Vincent, tackle out of Alabama A&M, more depth along the offensive line. Bilal Kone is a cornerback that I like out of Western Michigan. A little bit of size at 6'1", can run at 4.4, 340. A little raw, right? A little raw, but with some training and some coaching, he could be an upgrade over Stevens, who left in free agency to the Jets. He could be an upgrade over him in 2 years. So I like that pick in the 6th round. Get you a kicker. Obviously, we know what's going on with Justin Tucker. So they went and got themselves a kicker in the 6th round in Tyler Loop. We'll see how that works out for him. LeJontay Wester out of Colorado. solid addition there. Aeneas Peebles, undersized defensive tackle, reminds me of Namni Matabike when he came out of Texas A&M. Undersized defensive tackle with quickness that can be disruptive, and we'll see what he, turns into. And I think he's got a great guy to mentor under in Matabike, as I just mentioned. So that's a really good pick in the 6th round. Robert Longerbeam, cornerback out of Rutgers, and Garrett Dillinger, guard out of LSU, are their final 2 picks. And we'll see if those guys are able to make this roster. This is a very, very deep class of draftees. What is this? 11 guys? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yikes. My guess is after the kicker, none of these guys are guaranteed a roster spot. Hell, Bilal Kone might not make the roster. Carson Vincent may not make the roster. The first 4 picks are going to make the roster. I think Kone has a legitimate shot, and the kicker probably will be there as well. Peebles is very interesting. The rest of these guys, good luck to them. We'll see. This, after about 9 picks, drafts become a little bit tedious to me. We'll see what happens, but the top of this draft here with Starks, Green, Jones, Buchanan, excellent. Kone, I love that, and I really like Aeneas Peebles. I think that's a really intriguing pickup there. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to do the things that I think he's going to be able to do. But Starks is going to come in and be a starter right away. Green is going to be a guy that's going to see the field very early. Jones, I think they're going to plug him in at guard because you have your 2 tackles, right? Ronnie Stanley on one side, Roger Rosengarten on the other side. They let one of their guards, walk in free agency. Jones, they're probably going to just plug him in at guard, right? Teddy Buchanan comes in. I think he's going to be a guy that may not start right away, but I think he's going to find his way on the field. It's only a matter of time. And also, he can play special teams in the meantime. Bilal Kone, I think with some seasoning and, some coaching, he's a little rough around the edges right now, but the traits are there. Loop, we'll see what happens with him and the whole Justin Tucker situation. It kind of feels like the beginning of the end of Justin Tucker in Baltimore. And then Peebles, really interesting prospect for me there in the 6th round as a guy that is undersized at the defensive tackle position, but, they may be able to move him all around that D-line and get some production out of him, a la Namni Matabike. So it's another good draft by the Baltimore Ravens. But then again, what's new? This is what the Ravens do, right? So now you go to the Buffalo Bills. And I'll be honest with you, not one of my favorite drafts. There aren't many drafts that I wasn't like the biggest fan of. I'm not the biggest fan of this particular draft. It's not a bad draft. I don't know if I looked at any team's draft and was just like, ugh, this is nasty. But Maxwell Hairston is cool. I'm not the biggest Maxwell Hairston fan. I would have preferred them take Trey Amos, the cornerback out of Ole Miss. I thought that's what they were going to do. They instead took Maxwell Hairston, which is cool. I'm glad that they were able to get a corner. They traded Kaiir Elam, who was a first-round bust for them. So they're hitting the reset button there. They've had success drafting corners in other rounds, and they're hoping that he comes in here and he can be the second, coming of Trey White, right? Tre'Davious White. The ball production was great at Kentucky. He's another one of these guys similar to Will Johnson where, and I talked about this throughout the draft process with these corners, the eyes of these corners are electric in this draft. When they see something underneath, they don't hesitate. They see it, they stick their foot in the ground, and they go get it. And he's one of those guys. That's how you get those pick sixes, right? So we'll see if he can come in and kind of give them a boost at the cornerback position. TJ Sanders, really solid defensive tackle out of South Carolina. Plays physical, a lot, plays bigger than his size. I think he's sub 300 pounds, but plays like a big physical defensive tackle, but still has a good enough movement skills to offer you more than just a space eating defensive tackle. So that's a solid add for the Buffalo Bills on the interior. Landon Jackson, I am not a fan of. Okay. There were people that tried to convince me that he was a, fringe first round pick, but was definitely a second round pick. And I was like, no. To me, he was a fourth round pick, if you ask me. So, but this was one of the guys that people were a lot higher on than me. He's Cleveland Farrell. I don't love drafting Cleveland Farrell in the third round. So, he's cool. He's more explosive than Cleveland Farrell ever was. And he can bend a little bit better. We'll see what he ends up being. He feels like a Buffalo Bills edge, a guy that has some traits, but never ever explodes, never ever becomes a true difference maker. And then they'll be looking for edge again in 2 or 3 years from now, right? Like, he won't solve the problem. He'll just be another guy to get you 4.5, 5, maybe 5.5 sacks. It's cool. He's a third round pick. So, 5.5 sacks from a third round pick, that's solid. But he won't be what you want him to be, right? He won't turn into a star. He won't turn into a 11.5 sack guy, right? Deone Walker is very interesting now. This guy, he was one of the guys where I just said, if he can ever put it all together, this is a massive man here. We're talking about 6'7", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 330 pounds, 35-inch arms almost. Like, this guy is, and he's an athlete. Big, physical, fast, but he's just got to put it together. And like most big, tall defensive tackles, he's got his limitations. But, man, if he can figure it out, you might have stolen one here in the fourth round. He's very, very, very intriguing. Jordan Hancock, cornerback out of Ohio State. Solid pick here. Again, just throwing darts at the dartboard at the cornerback position, hoping to see it stick. And you know what? This is the range in the draft where the Bills have had more success drafting corners than up here, right? So we'll see. Jordan Hancock may end up being better than Maxwell Hairston if the Bills' history repeats itself. So we'll see. Speaking of which, not to skip over Jackson Hawes, who I think is one of the best, if not the best, blocking tight end in this entire draft. So you know what you're getting here. They got the athletic tight end thing down pat, right? They got multiples of those. They need the guy that's going to put somebody's dick in the dirt. Well, you got that guy now in Jackson Hawes. So that's what they got in the 5th round. And if you told me in 3 years Jackson Hawes is the best blocking tight end in the NFL, I'd believe you. Dorian Strong is going to be the steal of their draft. Speaking of getting corners down here towards the back end, when it's all said and done, I'm going to make a bold statement right now. Here's my spicy take for the Buffalo Bills. Dorian Strong will be the best corner that they selected in the 2025 NFL draft. They selected 3 corners: Maxwell Hairston in the 1st, Jordan Hancock in the 5th, Dorian Strong in the 6th. Dorian Strong will be the best of those 3. He'll be the one that they end up starting. Just like the corner that they have now starting, that they just gave a contract extension to. He was the 5th round pick, I believe, the year that they drafted Kaiir Elam in the 1st. And by the time they got to camp or the end of preseason, there was like, this guy's way better than Kaiir Elam. And so they put him in the game, and they never looked back. I'm not telling you that that's what's going to happen here. But what I am telling you is, over time, I think Dorian Strong is going to be the guy that ends up on the field. And if there's somebody that they won't pick up the 5th-year option on Maxwell Hairston, and simultaneously they'll be talking about an extension for Dorian Strong at the same time. Christian Benford, thank you. That was the name of the corner. And so he's a 5th or 6th round pick. That's what's going to happen here with Dorian Strong. I'm putting my money down, and I'm doubling down on it. Chase Lunt, tackle out of Connecticut, and then Caden Prather is interesting. Height, weight, speed, wide receiver out of Maryland with some drop issues, but has some size at 6'3", and has some speed. I think he's a 4.4 guy. So he's interesting. And look, I don't know if you guys saw the Bills general manager, Brandon Beane, or heard him on a radio program after the draft. And he went off on a couple of dudes who were bitching about the receiver position, and he went off. And I don't think it's a coincidence that after that whole conversation, and I'm not saying that he's allowing, outside noise to influence him to make decisions that he otherwise wouldn't have made, but I do find it very coincidental. Maybe that's all it is a coincidence that all of a sudden, after that whole rant, they go out and they sign Elijah Moore to a 1-year, $5 million deal, right? 1 year, $5 million contract. And I'm like, I love the move. We've been talking about Elijah Moore all offseason. Like, why in the hell has no one signed Elijah Moore? This is crazy. Well, they go and sign him after the draft. And it didn't happen until after that conversation. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But that was good stuff. And this is it's an I draft by the Bills, right? Like I said, if you have 4 picks like you're supposed to, rounds 1 through 4, you should come away with at least 3. It should be 4, but at least 3 starters. Hairston's going to start. Sanders is going to start at some point. And Jackson probably will start. Deone Walker is the one guy that I can't say right now is going to start for them, but he'll be in the rotation. I'd be shocked if at some point he doesn't start as well. Strong is the guy that I'm looking at, and I'm saying, watch him overachieve. Watch him be the guy that jumps in here into this mix. But Hawes, you know what you're getting. Blocking tight end. He can run a little bit too, but blocking tight end. You know what you're getting here. So solid draft. Can't knock the hustle. I don't love some of the guys with that. Just because they're not my cup of tea doesn't mean they're not good football players. Carolina Panthers. Very interesting draft. Love how their season ended last year. Highly competitive at the end of the season. And the biggest thing that happened for them was the reemergence of their former number 1 overall pick at the quarterback position starting to play like a former number 1 overall pick. Bryce Young looked shell-shocked for the first year and a half of his career, was even benched in the early stages of his second season in the league. Came back from that benching. It felt over at that point. We were talking about trade destinations for him. We got to get him out of Carolina. They're ruining this kid, yada, yada, yada. They put him back in the lineup, and he looked like a brand new man. He looked like the guy that came out of Alabama with confidence. He looked more sure of himself, and it gave them the freedom to be able to just focus on everything other than quarterback. Because if not, you're sitting there at 8, they may have had to do something drastic if he still was looking somewhat, skittish. That said, if you feel good about him, which they do right now, go get him some targets, man. For the second straight year of his career, the best receiver that they had in Carolina was what's the white receiver from Minnesota's name? Y'all will tell me what his name is. And he's still playing at a pretty high level for them. He got injured last year, though. But when he came back, he was really good. And thank you, Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen at 32 years old can't be your best receiver. And yes, they drafted Xavier Legette last year. He's cool. And remember, he was raw when they drafted him. So I'm not gonna beat him up. But they're gonna need more from him. They haven't done a good job of drafting receivers. They drafted the Ole Miss receiver that got traded to Dallas in the second round. That was a mistake, and everybody knew it the minute they did it. I think Legette will be fine. I don't know if he'll ever live up to the first round billing, but he's got the talent. We'll see if it ever manifests itself. But in Tetaroa McMillan, they drafted a bona fide number one wide receiver. Again, assuming he's locked in, that he loves football, all the things that were questions heading into this process, assuming that all of those were just draft noise, all of those conversations was just draft noise, and this kid's ready to come in and tear the league up, they got themselves a dog in the first round. And I think that properly slots, because I think they were trying to force a number one role on Xavier Legette last year. That's just not who he is. McMillan is definitely capable of coming in and giving them a Drake London type of wide receiver to head that room. So that's a really good pick for them. Then they get Nick Scorton in the second round. I started this process not a Nick Scorton fan, and the more I watched of Nick Scorton, the more I became a fan. And by the end of this process, I was a Nick Scorton fan. I was converted over, and I think he's going to be a hell of a football player at the NFL level, as long as he plays at the weight that he was at in 2023 when he was at Purdue. For some reason, he went to Texas A&M, and he put on all this weight unnecessarily. I don't really know why, but he didn't lose a ton of athleticism, which is crazy, but he wasn't the same type of athlete, and he wasn't nearly as productive nor disruptive in 2024. So Scorton, I think that's the kind of leader they need in that locker room. They need a guy with a dog mentality. He's young. I think he's only 21 years old. And everywhere he's been a captain. I just think they need that kind of dog-ass mentality in their locker room. They need a guy like Nick Scorton to help them kind of set the tone and continue to help try to change the culture in Carolina. In the third, Princely Umanmielen is an edge that I think has immense talent, but I question his motor at times. He's one of those guys that you'll watch 7 plays straight of him, and 4 of those 7 plays, it looks like he's just kind of wandering aimlessly, like, bro, what are you doing? And then 3 of those plays, he just decides, I'm rushing the quarterback and I'm gonna get pressure. And he'll rush, and it's like they can't stop him from getting to the quarterback. I'm like, well, where's that shit at? Every time. Where's that shit on the other 4 plays that I watched where you were just loafing? If he can just be consistent, man, he could be a problem. He had one of the best win rates of any edge rusher in college this year. And again, I can tell you that I saw him win a bunch. I also saw a lot of times where he was just out there chumming it up with the tackle. Hey, man, what's good with you? What's good with you, man? Not much, man. Out here just, having fun on a Saturday, man. What's good with you? Man, not much, man. Out here trying to win our second game in conference play. Like, word, that's what's up, man. All right, well, I'll kick it with you a little bit later, man. All right, man, good chopping it up with you. Like, he looked like he was having conversations with tackles, chilling. And then other times he was whooping their ass. And which Princely Umanmielen are we getting, right? Which one are we getting? The one that's over there chumming it up, or the one that's over there kicking some ass? If it's the one that's kicking ass, that's a steal in the third round. But they doubled up on edge, as you can see. So that tells you what they feel about their edge rushing position. Like Jadeveon Clowney is there, but he ain't there, right? Trevor Etienne in the 4th round was a bit of a surprise. Thought that was a little early for him, but they need speed, man. And it's a shame what happened to the Texas running back that they drafted last year. Brooks, I believe it is, or 2 years ago now. Came into the league hurt. So it was last year I think they drafted him. Came into the league, I think it's Jonathan Brooks. Came into the league injured off of an ACL, which is why his draft stock dropped. Wasn't able to play until like week 6 or 7. And by like week 11 or 12, he had retorn his ACL. Oh, shit sucks. But because of everything transpiring the way that it has over the last 2 years, they were able to really get Chuba Hubbard some opportunities, and he's taken advantage of it so much so they gave him an extension. Good for him. And now they've got real speed next to Chuba Hubbard. So Hubbard can do the dirty work, and then you got Trevor Etienne to try to hit the home runs. So it's a good little yin and yang thing they got going at the running back position. Now, Ransom out of Ohio State, to me, is the most solid and fundamentally sound safety in the entire draft. He's going to do his job, be where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there. He's going to be a physical enforcer over the middle of the football field. Nothing stands out about him other than you can trust Ransom to do his job and do it to the best of his capabilities. So that's a really solid pick. Again, another one of those dudes that you just feel like I can depend on him. I can put him on the field, put a C on his chest, and he'll get everybody lined up, and he'll be where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. Cam Jackson, defensive tackle out of Florida. Another solid, again, a deep defensive tackle draft class. Add him to the mix. Throw him along that defensive line. And they already have a very deep defensive tackle group in Carolina. Add him to the mix. Mitchell Evans, solid tight end prospect out of Notre Dame. Throw him in the mix. They got a bunch of tight ends. They just drafted one out of Texas last year. So they got a bunch of tight ends already in Carolina. Add Mitchell Evans to that mix. And then Jimmy Horn Jr. is a really, really solid prospect that I felt like someone was going to get at the back end of the draft, that can return kicks, that offers some speed, and I think and really good with the ball in his hands. So again, just another guy you throw a dart at the end of the draft, throw a dart at the board and hope it sticks. I think he's going to be a good receiver for them. And remember, the receiver position isn't extremely deep for the Carolina Panthers either. So he'll have a shot to not only make this roster, but have an impact relatively early. So see, Tet starter, Scorton starter, Umamielen eventually will be a starter, but I don't think he'll be a year 1 starter, but I think eventually he'll be a starter. Etienne isn't a starter. He's more of a change of pace third down back. Latham Ransom, I think, will start for them in 2 to 3 years from now. So ultimately, you probably came away with 1, 2, 3, 4 starters. Again, they had 5 picks in the first 4 rounds. I said if you have multiple picks in any of the first 4 rounds, you add another starter to the mix. So they came away with probably 4 starters. I don't ever see Trevor Etienne starting for the Carolina Panthers. There'd have to be a rash of injuries for him to get in there and be the guy that they're handing it to 15 or more times in a game. But he'll get his fair share of touches. Like, they have plans for Trevor Etienne. So he'll be a factor in this offense for Carolina. So may not be a starter, but he'll be a damn good contributor. That's for sure. So you feel good about these first 5 picks. And I actually feel really good about Jimmy Horn Jr. at the bottom. And Mitchell Evans will do his part, but I don't know if he'll ever be a real true difference maker at the NFL level. But Jimmy Horn Jr. Added to the first 5 guys. So really, really solid draft for the Carolina Panthers. The Chicago Bears, arguably had one of the best drafts of any team in the entire National Football League. You start off with Colston Loveland, who I loved. Was a bit of a shock to the senses that he went before the consensus number one tight end in this draft. I initially was like caught off guard by Colston Loveland being the pick. But when you think about what Loveland brings to the table and how athletic he is, and you put all of that together, I get it. I get it. And they're two tight end sets because they already have a beast tight end, which was interesting when the conversation surrounding tight end came up and they were so hell bent on getting a tight end. And I'm like, why are they so aggressively pursuing tight end? Like they don't already have one. They have one already. But you think about Ben Johnson, you think about the things he wants to do and how he wants to be multiple across the board. Having Loveland and the tight end that they already have, I can't think of his name, and he's got a like a 4-letter name. I don't know why I can't remember anybody's name anymore. I used to be sharp with these names. Now I can't remember anybody's name. I got too much shit going on. And he's a Golden Domer too. That's the bad part. So you got the two tight end set now with Loveland, and he's going to be an animal. I love Colston Loveland. I think he's going to be a dog at the NFL level, man. And I actually think he blocks better than people give him credit for it too. So you got him in the first round. Luther Burden III, who, again, similar to what I was just saying about the edge rusher that the Panthers took in the second round. I wasn't a Luther Burden III fan initially. Cole Kmet, thank you. It got Cole Kmet. And I'll forget Cole Kmet's name tomorrow. I don't know. If you ask me one player's name that I can never remember, it's Cole Kmet's name. I can't remember his name to save my life. And it's 8 letters long. And I can't remember his name. And I wish for the life of me I could tell you why, but I can't. I'll forget his name in 15 minutes. Luther Burden III was a guy that I wasn't hyped on coming into this process. The 2024 tape, uninspiring. The combine left a lot to be desired, and I was just like, I don't understand what the hype around this dude is. I don't see it. And I remember Commanders fans, when this process first started, was like, yo, if we get Luther Burden III, and I remember during the season, he had liked a post that Jaden put out there, and fans started getting hyped. He wants to be in Washington. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know the kid. You could have put him next to a mannequin. I wouldn't have been able to tell you the difference. So then we get to the process. I'm watching him, and I'm like, what's the fuss about? This kid's not all that good. Doubled back, did more digging, did more film watching, and I'm like, okay. Went back to 2023. That's really what you had to do. There was some 2024 good stuff, but most of it was in 2023. And then you see it, and you're like, okay, I see it now. Nope, doesn't run a route tree. No, he's not a great route runner. But, and there is a but, boy, is he dynamic with the football in his hands. And he's a rare breed. And to get him at 39 and to pair him with DJ Moore, who's another guy that's really good with the ball in his hands. You already drafted a receiver last year that you really, really love. Now you got Cole Kmet, Colston Loveland, DJ Moore, Luther Burden III, and the receiver from Washington you drafted last year. If that's not one of the best young skill position groups in the NFL, not to mention you got a running back. And you know what's funny? I was like, man, I felt like they just gave that 3-year deal to DeAndre Swift. That's crazy that everyone's talking about them taking a running back. And you got DeAndre Swift. And I think they drafted another running back maybe a year or two ago. Drafted another one in this year's draft that's going to be really solid alongside DeAndre Swift as well. So Burden in the second round, that's good value. That's probably where he should have gone, but man, he has first round talent. But there's some things that may not line up to make him a first round receiver, but he's got first round talent. Ozzie Trapillo, I think, was the third or fourth best tackle in this year's draft class. I mean, that's not saying a ton because this wasn't a great tackle draft class, but still, that's a year one starter potentially. Shamar Turner, I like him a lot. I actually like him more than Shamar Stewart. It's crazy as that may sound. I know they don't play the same position, but I think he has a chance to be more impactful than Shamar Stewart. And I probably sound crazy saying that. I don't care. So I like him a ton. Ruben Hippolyte II, I have no idea. I haven't watched him, so I can't give you too much on him. But linebacker in the fourth round, we'll see how that turns out for him. They've already got talent at the linebacker position, so you throw him in the mix and see how he turns out. Za Frazier, cornerback out of UTSA, I think he was. Height, weight, speed specimen, right? 6'3", 6'4" corner, right? Ran a 4.3 flat, super raw, right? Like, mechanical, new to the position, former wide receiver, lots of shit you got to clean up there. But you throw a dart in the fifth round and you're like, man, if this guy turns out to be, if his skill catches up with his traits, you could have one of the best corners in the league. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but these are the kind of guys you take later in day 3. Luke Newman, guard out of Michigan State, throw him in the mix. And then Kyle Monagai is a guy that I think could actually be a great complement to DeAndre Swift. So when it's all said and done, this is a hell of a draft. Like I said, it's one of the best drafts that anybody put together this year. And I'll say this, and I said this during day 2 of the draft when Burden was selected. Because we knew what they did last year in the draft at the receiver position. You knew what they already had in DJ Moore. Went out and got DeAndre Swift last year as well. You already knew they had Cole Kmet. So they already had stuff. You add Loveland to the tight end room. Now you got one of the best and most fearsome 2 tight end sets in the entire NFL. You add Burden to what you already have at the receiver position. You fortified the offensive line. You traded for 2 premier guards in this league. I think one of them may be past their prime at this point, but still, he's got good football left in him. One from the Rams, one from the Chiefs. You draft a tackle, so you fortified the offensive line. You added more weapons. There's no excuse for Caleb Williams, is what I said. There's no excuse. And now you have one of the best, if not the best play caller in the entire league as your head coach. No excuses for Caleb Williams this year. That offense should be fun to watch. That Chicago Bears offense should be fun to watch this year. This is a hell of a draft by the Chicago Bears. Cincinnati Bengals. All right, so here's a draft that I don't think I necessarily love. And this is rare for me to say this, because if there's a team in the league that I feel like drafts extremely well every year, it's Cincinnati. They're one of those teams that generally they disregard off the field issues, and they just go for talent. And they stack talent on top of talent on top of talent. And you look up and you're like, damn, I like that guy, I like that guy, I like that guy. That's a really good pick. Okay, I can see why they did that. And then 3 years later, they got all these dudes and they got to figure out who to pay. And that's a good problem to have. It means you're drafting well. I don't really get the sense that that's what took place here in this particular draft. The running joke was they should just draft all defensive players after last year's debacle. They started out that way with a guy that was as polarizing a prospect as there was in this 2025 NFL draft in Shamar Stewart, the edge out of Texas A&M, lacking the production, but oozing and dripping the measurables and the traits. This is one of those guys that people argue is the scheme. Can you coach? Yada, yada, yada. We'll find out. All the excuses that were made for him as to why he did not produce go out the window now. Let's see what he can do. I mean, maybe he turns into this ridiculous stud and a beast. And everything that people said about him that had him as a top 10 prospect will come to fruition. I'm just not one of those people. So I don't love the pick. Demetrius Knight Jr. is a really good linebacker. I like him. I like him for Cincinnati. They need a guy like him. It makes sense for what they've had at the linebacker position for the last 7 years or so, maybe even further back. They've always had a guy with the talent of a Demetrius Knight Jr. So he feels right in Cincinnati. Dylan Fairchild, I thought it was a little early for him. Not that I don't dislike the player. I think he's a good football player and one that they could definitely use. Just thought it was a bit early. But again, I don't care about when you take a guy. As long as he's effective and you get what you need out of him, that's all that really matters. And I think they're going to get what they need out of Dylan Fairchild when it's all said and done. Barrett Carter, the linebacker out of Clemson, again, clearly they felt like they needed to upgrade the linebacker position. They didn't get enough out of that position last year. And so Carter comes in, throw him in the mix. We'll see what he's able to provide them at the linebacker position. Jalen Rivers, tackle out of Miami, is a guy that can't stay healthy, right? Big man, dealt with injuries just about every year of his career. If he can stay healthy, he may be able to provide them something. We'll see. But he's an interesting prospect in the 5th round. And then Taj Brooks, I actually really like this pick. I told you could find a running back prospect from the start to finish of this draft. This is one of those examples of that. Taj Brooks in the 6th round. In a normal draft, Taj Brooks is probably 4th or 5th round pick. In this draft, he's a 6th round pick. And the only reason he's probably even here is because he's not fast. I think he ran like a 4.52. But like natural instincts for the position, natural feel, vision, agility, he's got all of that stuff. He's just not going to hit any home runs. That's what they got Chase Brown for, right? Now he can play off of him, and that's a really, really good pick in the 6th round for the Cincinnati Bengals. It really, truly is. So this draft is ultimately going to be judged by how good Shamar Stewart turns out to be, because I think Demetrius Knight Jr. is going to be good. Dylan Fairchild is going to be good, and Taj Brooks is going to be good. And the goal is to come out of this draft with at least 4 starters. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks. All right. So the normal hit rate for a draft is 30%. In this year's draft, 30% isn't good enough unless you're the Ravens and you have 87 picks. Right? You're the Bengals, you had 6 picks. You want 4 of these guys to be starters. There's a chance that 4 of them are starters. How good of starters are they is the question. Shamar Stewart is the biggest question mark. There, Demetrius Knight Jr., Dylan Fairchild, and Taj Brooks will all be key contributors on this football team, and I think fairly early at that. Stewart is the one that's going to make or break this draft. Being that I'm not the biggest Shamar Stewart fan, we'll see how that turns out. Solid draft for Cincinnati, but it's not the type of draft that I'm accustomed to seeing Cincinnati have. That said, we move on to the next team in that division, the Cleveland Browns. And I must say, the Cleveland Browns murdered the draft from a name standpoint. Every name that you see in front of you, you know. They were either one of the better players at their respective positions, or they were a guy that garnered enough attention to where you knew who he was and you knew what his game was about. There's not a single name up here where you're like, I ain't never heard of him, or I got to do some work on him, or I had to do some work on him. You knew who Mason Graham was. You knew who Carson Schlesinger was or is. You knew who Quinshon Judkins is. Harold Fannin Jr., Dylan Gabriel, Dylan Sampson, and Shedeur Sanders. Now, what I will say is this draft, for me, was a bit uneven from this standpoint. So you have to also keep in mind that they did trade back. So they picked up an additional pick in the second round, I believe it was, this year. They picked up an additional pick in the third round, I think, this year, and then they got a first rounder next year. So they cleaned up in moving back 4 spots. Excuse me, 3 spots from 2 to 5 and select Mason Graham. Love the pick. Love Mason Graham. Love what he's going to be. Love what he can provide on that D-line alongside Myles Garrett. So love that pick. Love it, love it, love it. Carson Schlesinger, really good linebacker out of UCLA. He's going to come in and he's going to be an immediate starter for them and hopefully provide them massive dividends as the signal caller, right? The green dot guy, right? And you hope to get JOK back. And if Schlesinger is as advertised along with Mason Graham, remember this Browns defense just is 1 year removed from being the top red zone defense in the NFL, the top scoring defense when they were at home. They're one of the best defenses in the league in 2023. Injuries, really beset them last year, and they weren't the same group, but the talent is still there for the most part. And now you add more talent to that mix. They could be right back in that mix. But again, the question becomes, who's your signal caller? It's another conversation for another day. You get Quinshon Judkins in the second round. I love this pick. And I remember people telling me I was crazy when I said Quinshon Judkins. Now, I did say he was the faster of the two, and that was not true. But I said he was the better of the two backs. He was a more complete of the two backs. Like, we go goo gaga over Travion Henderson's ability to block, and rightfully so. His pass protection is next level. But Quinshon Judkins can do that too. Like, he's not on the level of Travion Henderson, but he can pass protect. Travion Henderson ran a 4.43, and maybe he plays faster than that. Judkins ran a 4.48. He's like, the difference isn't that great. But when you watch the two, one looks considerably faster than the other. I will grant you that. But Judkins is a physical back. A guy that if you give him space, he can do the rest. He's not going to make a bunch of people miss. It would be one of my knocks on him, but boy, is he talented. Love me some Quinshon Judkins. And they needed a guy like Chubb. That whole situation, unfortunately, was ravaged by injuries, and he just wasn't himself anymore. They needed a dog. They got one. Harold Fannin Jr., you pair him with David Njoku, and again, that could be a really nasty 2 tight end set there that they have. And eventually, he'll probably take Njoku's spot in Cleveland. But love that pick, right? For whomever's going to be your signal caller, whoever's throwing the football. I don't love their receiver position. I don't at all. But you give them a running back. Now they got 2 tight ends. Jerry Jeudy emerged last year, and maybe, just maybe, you got enough. Maybe. Thought they should have taken a receiver at some point in this draft. Did you really need to double up on quarterbacks when you already had Joe Flacco? You drafted Dylan Gabriel, which we're going to get to here in a second, which made no sense if you were going to take Shedeur Sanders. Why not just take Shedeur Sanders in the 3rd and be done with it? You took Dylan Gabriel and then doubled back and said, well, Shedeur is still sitting here. This is too much talent to pass up. What are you doing, man? Like, now you got like 5 quarterbacks, right? None of this shit makes any sense. You got Shedeur Sanders. You got Dylan Gabriel. You got Joe Flacco. You got Deshaun Watson. And you have Kenny Pickett, who you just traded for. What the hell are you doing? What is all of this? I can't get jiggy with this shit. What is this? So, I mean, they may be done with Watson. I don't know, but you see the videos of him, on the comeback trail, and, he swears he's going to get back to where he was and this, that, and the third. I believe it when I see it. I don't know if he'll ever play another snap for the Cleveland Browns again. So maybe he doesn't factor into any of this conversation. We'll see. Kenny Pickett, you traded for him. He felt like a backup the entire time, but okay. So he's here. Flacco doesn't really factor into this from a long-term perspective. They brought him in here for comfort purposes, right? Just look, guy that knows the system, helped us get to the playoffs a couple of years ago. Worst case scenario, if we don't love any of the guys that we brought in here, we got Flacco and we can start him and he can help us as a bridge quarterback get to week 5 or 6 when presumably Gabriel or Sanders or someone is ready to help us win football games. Because what last year did was it put their head coach in a position where he said, I never want to do that shit again, right? So they went, it seems like, to the other end of the spectrum. I thought the Dylan Gabriel pick was a slap in the face to Shedeur Sanders. And it was a message. To me, that was when the message was sent that the league is speaking. Like if anybody's saying collusion didn't happen is foolish, that whole narrative that people were trying to paint, like there's no way that NFL owners would collude to not draft a player, bullshit. I've seen NFL owners collude before in different ways. This is the first time I've seen them collude against a single player. And granted, if Shedeur Sanders had first round talent, right? Like I thought he had back end of the first round talent. I did. But if he had like Cam Ward talent, he would have gone in the first round still. Despite all the shit that we've heard, he still would have went in the first round. But he doesn't. Again, those attributes that you look for, he doesn't have, right? He doesn't have the big arm. He's not a tremendous athlete. He's not 6'5", right? So all of those things that you look for to be off the charts, to give you a chance to find one of those guys that's a true difference maker, he doesn't have. Doesn't mean he can't be a really good quarterback. He's better than Dylan Gabriel. So those 2 picks aside, which at the end of the day, I guess if you're the Browns, just throw as many darts as you can at the board. Because, again, last year was so nasty. That was some diabolical work that they put forth at the quarterback position. It was so nasty last year that they said, that shit ain't happening to us then again this year. Really, the last 2 years at the quarterback has been really quarterback position has been really nasty for the Browns. And sandwiched in between those 2 quarterback picks, it's Dylan Sampson. So they double up at the running back position. They just got 2 Studs at the running back position. 2. So you know what that means. Whomever's playing quarterback, just turn around and hand that bitch off. And when we go play action fake, don't miss. Please. We got you a tight end that can run up the seam. We got Jerry Jeudy that can get open and can run routes underneath, and he can also get vertical. Don't miss. Because we're going to hand this bitch off 30 some odd times a game to Judkins and to Dylan Sampson. Don't miss when you get that wide open shot down the field for a touchdown, please. So you see where this is going, right? Look, I can sit here and talk shit about the Dylan Gabriel selection and then doubling down with Shedeur Sanders and all that. This is a great draft. Who are we kidding? This is only knock I have is instead of drafting 2 quarterbacks, you could have reduced this to 1 and got you a receiver. That's the only thing I would, and you could have still got you a really good receiver in the 5th round, more likely than not. A guy that could come in and at least compete. But ultimately, I got nothing but good things to say about this draft, honestly speaking. Like, this is a really good draft, man. Like, really good draft. I love it. Love it for the Browns. We'll see what they're able to do. Cowboys. So, the same thing that I just said about the Browns draft, you could say about the Cowboys draft, which is, where's the receiver? Now, in the Browns case, they took a tight end that could act as another receiver. They already had a beast tight end. So you put that 2 tight end set in there, it reduces the need for having, another really big target at receiver. That said, the Cowboys got nothing. Now, I'm assuming they're going to bank on the receiver that they traded for at the trade deadline last year for a 3rd-round pick from Carolina to improve to the point where it'll make this a moot point. But assuming that he does not, they should have drafted a receiver at some point in the mid rounds, right? Look, I love the first 4 picks. Love them, love them, love them. And who didn't think the Cowboys were going to take an offensive lineman at 12? Who didn't? Raise your hands, right? Raise your hand. All right, 1. Is that a hand? No, that's not a hand. One person thought they weren't going to draft an offensive lineman. Who didn't see that coming? Zach Martin retires. Big void at guard. Who didn't see this shit coming? It just was a matter of who they were going to take, but they were taking an offensive lineman. They took Tyler Booker out of Alabama. Really good offensive lineman, really good guard. He's going to fit in perfectly with that Cowboys offensive line. I don't hate the pick, but if you're a Cowboys fan, you just wanted a skill position player. And maybe if Genty were there, maybe if Tet were there, maybe you would have gone skill position player. But clearly, that was not something that you coveted because you didn't draft a single wide receiver. And I don't blame the Cowboys, by the way, for not drafting a receiver. If you didn't love the guys that were there, or you loved another guy more than that receiver that was available at the time of your selection. Case in point, 2nd round. Donovan Izaraku is a guy that a lot of people mocked in the 1st round. I mean, as high as Cincinnati at 17. He goes 44th overall to the Cowboys. I can't be mad at them passing up an opportunity to draft a receiver, which is probably where the value is its greatest, at right around 44. Can't blame them for passing up an opportunity with Izaraku on the board. That's a home run pick in the 2nd round. Donovan Izaraku is. He fits in with what Dallas does off the edge, and just schematically as a defense and the kind of player that they put on the field, he's going to be a problem in Dallas. Their defense isn't and hasn't been the problem. It's their offense that's usually the problem. Siobhan Revel Jr., another excellent pick. I'm not a big Siobhan Revel Jr. fan, first and foremost, but to get him in the third round, I'm a fan of that. There were people that had him mocked in the first round. Like, I'm not going to say that was craziness, but that was craziness. Second round, though, based off the injuries and whatnot, thought mid to late second was where he would go. He went early, let's call it the beginning of the midpoint of the third round. That's good value for Siobhan Revel Jr., really. It is. And they can use that, being that they don't know what, and, again, we're talking about a corner coming off of a major injury, and you got a corner that probably won't play in 2025 or at a bare minimum won't be back until late in the season, if at all, in Trayvon Diggs. So that's a pretty important pick, is Siobhan Revel Jr. And then one of my favorite players in the entire draft, of course he would end up in Dallas. It's Jaden Blue, running back out of Texas. He's going to be a thorn in our side for at least the next 4 years, possibly longer. I guarantee you he's going to make big plays in this league. Guarantee it. That one hurt. That one right there. Of all the picks, that one hurts because he's a damn good football player. And I know he's like the one of the things that made the Cowboys a lot less scary was they didn't have a running back that I feared, right? I didn't fear any of their running backs. They had Tony Pollard. That was the last one that I feared, where I was like, shit, we got to do something with Tony Pollard. Jaden Blue is the equivalent of, now he doesn't have like the quicks of their return man, Kevontae Turpin, but he's the equivalent of Kevontae Turpin in the backfield. I don't understand why Kevontae Turpin wasn't getting the ball more, why they wouldn't put him in the backfield, why they wouldn't throw him wide receiver screens, why they wouldn't throw him slants, why they wouldn't just do everything in their power to get him the football. He's so dynamic with the ball in his hands. Now he just got a running back that can do a lot of those things. And Jaden Blue, shit sucks, is what it does. Shamar James, linebacker out of Florida, tweener type of guy. Is he an edge? Is he a backer? What is he going to be at this again? But he fits. He's an athlete. Fits that Cowboys defense. Fits that Cowboys defense. Cornelius, the tackle out of Oregon. We'll see what he ends up being. I think his life in this league is probably going to be inside. I don't see him surviving outside as a tackle. I think he's going to ultimately be a guard. Toya, this pick right here feels like, just in case we can't stop the run, let's just make sure we got a guy. Right? Man, he's built like a fire hydrant, like 6'2", like damn near 340, 330, 340. Can move a little bit for his size, but his job at the NFL level is going to be to stop the run. Phil Maffa, big physical back. Just toss him in the mix, right? Like no traits that stand out other than he's big. Okay, cool. And then Tommy A is a guy that is very intriguing because he kind of fits that Cowboys mold. He's raw. He's not ready to help now. He's a draft and stash. But if they coach him up and they're able to maximize what he has, because he's dripping and oozing with talent. They're able to coach him up and maximize his talent. 2-3 years down the road, we could be talking about Tommy as a problem. But look, this is a really good draft. I mean, who are we kidding? This is a really good draft by the Dallas Cowboys. I talked about, needing to come out of the draft with at least 4 starters. They got 4 starters. And, well, their first 3 picks are starters. Jaden Blue won't be a starter, per se. They went out and got Javonte Williams and they got your boy from the Panthers who was with the Eagles initially from Penn State. So they got stuff at running back already. So Blue won't start, but he'll be a hell of a complimentary piece and he'll have an impact. So this is a good draft, man. This is a really good draft by the Dallas Cowboys. They got impactful players with their first 4 picks. Impactful players. Miles Sanders, thank you. Casper the Barbarian. They got Miles Sanders too. So this is an impactful draft. It's an impactful draft for the Dallas Cowboys. Denver Broncos. So this is an up and coming team right here. So this is an important draft, if you ask me. For the Denver Broncos. Very important draft. Because they're on the cusp. Give me a 30-second timeout. This smoothie was so good. I want some more. I'm going to get me some more. I'll be right back. All right. I'm back. Sorry about that. Damn. Had to have it. So, to me, the Denver Broncos are on the cusp of competing in the AFC West. They went to Arrowhead and stands for a block kick. Won that game, right? At the end. They know how to play Kansas City. They beat Kansas City the year before. I think it was one of the up until the Super Bowl game, obviously, against the Eagles. It was the worst that I had ever seen Patrick Mahomes look was against that Denver Broncos defense a couple of years ago. That includes the Tampa Bay Super Bowl. I mean, they picked him off like 3 or 4 times. They really flustered him. And that's what family business is all about. They know Mahomes. They see him twice a year. They know how to play him. That defense is really good. But finding Bo Nix last year, getting some young guys to step up, they're on the cusp. They just need a few more pieces. They may have gotten those pieces in this draft. We'll see. But you start with Jahdae Barron. Love this pick for the Broncos in particular because they got one of the best corners, if not the best corner in the league in PS2. He doesn't have a running mate, though. Now he does. And with Jahdae, the beauty of it is you can play him inside, you can play him outside. I prefer my Jahdae Barron inside. But the nickel is just as important, if not more important than the boundary corner. Like I tell you, your number one corner is important. It's the most important corner you have. I tell you that your nickel is more important than your second corner. I tell you that your nickel is more important than your second corner. Because if the other team has one, like most teams don't have 2 beast receivers. That's rare. I mean, the Eagles have it. There are maybe 3 or 4 other teams where you look and say, okay, they got 2 dudes. It's pick your poison, right? Most teams have one legitimate guy, and then they have some other good players, but they're not exactly lighting the world on fire, right? But most teams have a guy that can hurt you in the slot. Most teams have a nickel, like a slot receiver, rather. And not all boundary corners can go inside. So if a guy is struggling on the outside, you can put him in motion. You can move him inside. and get him away from that corner if that guy isn't traveling with him. Hard to do that when you got PS2 on the outside and you got Ja'Day Barron on the inside now. And he can blitz. He can help around the line of scrimmage. Again, he can run with most guys in the slot. He's going to be a problem. Love that pick for them. RJ Harvey, I thought it was early for RJ, but I love it. That 4.4 flat speed, the quickness to make people miss in space. I like the pick. And they got a bunch of big physical backs already, right? They drafted the big physical back out of Notre Dame last year. And it felt like they have a guy that can run at the running back position. I forget his name, but he made some plays for them last year. But Harvey's different. RJ Harvey's different. I really like RJ Harvey a lot, and I like him in this Broncos offense a ton. That's a really good pick. Pat Bryant is a very underrated receiver. I knew someone was going to fall in love with his game. He doesn't run fast, and I knew that was going to, knock him down a peg on a lot of people's board. But his size, his ability to attack the football, great body control, just knows how to get open. And even when he's not, he's got a great contested catch rate, physical at the point of catch, good with the ball in his hands after the catch. And he blocks in the run game. He just does everything, right? Except run fast. And I knew somebody was going to say, that's a good football player. It just happened to be Sean Payton. Makes sense, right? Makes a ton of sense that he goes there. And again, I'm still looking at I'm still looking at their number one receiver. Golly. I can see his face. I can't think of his name. He's waiting for his contract. And I think they're going to do right by him. We talked about this on the podcast. They're going to do right by him. But Pat Bryant's selection, and I talked about this prior to the draft, before they drafted Pat Bryant. And this was more around if Tet was available. Well, this is a step down from Tet, but this is very similar to Tet. Cam Sutton, thank you, Casper the Barbarian. This is very similar to the Tet situation, except this is a step down. They drafted a lot of receivers last year, over the last 2 years. They drafted a lot of receivers. And Devon Vele, Franklin last year. They drafted the Oklahoma receiver 2 years ago. Like, they got a bunch of receivers, man. And Cam Sutton, now they just drafted Pat Bryant. I'm looking at Cam Sutton like, you sure they're going to give you this deal, bro? You sure? He's like, yeah, that's what they told me. I'm like, all right. I trust you. I love this Pat Bryant pick. Sevion Jones, big physical edge out of LSU. He doesn't really move the needle for me. He's a good football player, though. But I don't see him being like a high sack guy in the league. I just see him being a really good, defender, like a guy that's going to be a plus defender against the run, a guy that'll be average getting to the quarterback. And like, you can start him at one of your defensive end positions and feel good that he'll do what he's supposed to do. He won't hurt you, but he's not going to help you as a pass rusher, I don't think. Q Robinson, on the other hand, is interesting because he's a tweener. Don't really know what he's going to be at the NFL level. He's got some of the traits that you look for in an edge. Doesn't have a ton of experience. And you're looking at him and you're saying, what are you exactly? So his development will be key to seeing what he will ultimately become in this league. He could be everything. He could be nothing, right? So, I said Cam Sutton. Cortland Sutton. Thank you, Red Boy. Not Cam Sutton. Got me out here looking crazy in these streets. Cortland Sutton, not Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton's a corner. former corner of the Pittsburgh Steelers out of Tennessee. That's who Cam Sutton is. Not Cam, Cortland Sutton. So Cortland Sutton, I think he's still going to get his deal, but Pat Bryant makes it really interesting. You got a punter in Jeremy Crawshaw, and Caleb Lohner is interesting. I don't care about 7th round picks, but former basketball player, anytime you get a former hooper trying to make the conversion, look out, right? We'll see what he ends up being, but he'll be a guy that I'll check in on every now and again just to see if he ever turned into anything or not, because former hoopers that try to play the tight end position are always fascinating to me. So we'll see what he turns out to be, if anything. So I talked about the 4 starter minimum in this draft. Jahdae Barron, R.J. Harvey, Pat Bryant, and Savion Jones are all starting caliber players in this league. And I think all will start at some point in their rookie contracts. Barron is starting this year at some point. Harvey wouldn't shock me if he starts, but he's definitely going to be a huge part of their offense in his rookie season. Bryant, I could see him starting across Cortland Sutton immediately. But again, even if they decide not to do that, he can play in the slot too as a bigger slot receiver. Pat Bryant can move all around the formation. So he'll be on the field a lot once he gets the hang of the offense and they're comfortable with him. I see him being a contributor very fast. And Savion Jones, I think, give him 2 years. He'll be a starter at defensive end for them. So I think they got 4 starters out of this draft. And Q Robinson is interesting, and so is Caleb Lohner in the 7th round. Really solid draft. And this is a big draft, as I mentioned, for them, because this is the type of draft that could push them up that division, right? Right now, they're behind both the Chiefs and the Chargers. I think in most of our minds, that's where they are. They're 3rd in the pecking order. This is a draft that could push them up to 2nd and have them wrestling with the Kansas City Chiefs for AFC West supremacy. No one's been able to knock them off that mantle. What are we going on? 7 straight years the Chiefs have won the AFC West. You got to go back to the Alex Smith days. They won it, 2 years straight with Smith before Mahomes came into play, right? If I'm not mistaken. I think they won it that last year with Alex Smith. I don't think they won it the year. I think they won it the year before that. I think the first year of Alex Smith, they lost. They were blowing out the Colts. The Colts came back and beat them in a thrilling wild card weekend game. The next year, they were at home. They won the division. They lost to the Titans. That's the Marcus Mariota game where Mariota, lit them up after halftime, threw the touchdown pass to himself. And then the next year, they won the division again, lost to the Steelers in a game in which I don't think the Steelers scored a touchdown. I think they beat them with 6 field goals. Excuse me. And that was the end of Alex Smith at that point. So I think they won the division the last 2 years of Alex Smith. Mahomes has been in the league, 6 years now? He got in the league in 17. He didn't start in 17. So I think they won a division in 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I think it's 9 straight years of winning the division. If it's not 9, it's 8. Somebody's got to stop this shit at some point. I don't know if it's Denver, and I don't know if it's this year, but they feel like with a big draft here, maybe they could be the ones to really challenge Kansas City. So this is the Detroit Lions draft that we're staring at right now. This is such a Detroit Lions draft. If I didn't know that this was the Lions and you just asked me, whose draft do you think this is? I would say, I think this is a Detroit Lions draft. Why do I say that? Because this is a kick-ass and chew bubblegum type of draft, which is what the Detroit Lions stand for. That whole grit thing is real in that building. I mean, we've seen it manifest itself over the last 3 years. We watched Hard Knocks with them when it first started to come to fruition, and it's really what they personify. on the field. Dan Campbell is one of my favorite coaches in the entire league. He is true to himself. He's true to the game. He doesn't cheat the game. He doesn't cheat his players. They know where he stands. They know where he stands, right? They know where he stands, and he knows that the players trust him. And if they lose a game, he'll take the blame, but he's going to put the game in their hands, right? They love that. And all he asks in return is just give me everything you got. Be tough, be a dog, because I'm not going to back down. And I love his quotes. My favorite one is, if you're looking for us, you ain't gotta look far. Just open your front door. We standing on your porch. And if you're gonna say shit like that, you better have some dogs that's gonna back you up. And it starts up front. And you look at the two guys that they took on the interior of the offensive line, and Miles Frazier and Tate Ratledge, the stash, and they personify like glass-eating offensive linemen. You know, just tough guys. So does Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State, their first pick. Obviously, last year did not go well with all the injuries. They lost arguably their best interior and edge defensive linemen in the same season, right? Like, it was just a nightmarish defensive injury season. One of the craziest we've seen from a team that still ultimately won, what was it, 15 games? I think they went 15-2 last year with all the injuries. But they couldn't stop the run. By the time the end of the season hit, they couldn't stop the run. So Tyleik Williams is going to come in and help them, clean that up a little bit. He is a guy that is massive. We're talking about 330 here, 6'5", but again, ninja-like movement skills for that big of a man. And he's a guy that can stop the run, be disruptive in the backfield, but I also think there's an ability for him to get to the quarterback. And again, a lot of times you don't draft a guy in the first round if he can't get to the quarterback as well. So love that pick for them. Tate Ratledge, I already talked about what he brings to the table. This guy is a Detroit Lion through and through. He feels like a Detroit Lion. He's a plug-and-play guard. The Lions GM, Brad Holmes, said over the last couple of days that Isaac Tesla, the wide receiver out of Arkansas, was his favorite receiver in this year's draft. I think that's a bit of a stretch. I can't tell somebody else who their favorite receiver was. Like, after the fact, it's hard to take general managers serious when they say things, because what else are they going to say? Yo, Isaac Tesla was like my 10th favorite receiver in the draft. I really love this guy. That's not what he's going to say. But he didn't have to say he was his favorite receiver in the draft. He could have just said he was really high on our board. He was one of the top receivers on our board. He could say any number of things that would not have insinuated he was the best. He literally said he was my favorite receiver in the draft. He did not say he was the best receiver in the draft. He said it was his favorite receiver in the draft. Well, he took him. And he's big. He's fast. I think he's just a slot. But who uses slot receivers in this league better than the Detroit Lions? I'll wait. So if they're able to continue the tradition that Ben Johnson started by making slot receivers the thing, Isaac Tesla will be a problem in Detroit. Miles Frazier is, again, just a physical dude inside. There are limitations to him, but boy, I think he's another guy that's going to help. Either he's starting or he's depth. Either way, you feel really good about having Miles Frazier, I think. Ahmed Hussein, or Hassanein, is a great story. He was at the combine. I forget where he's from, but obviously he just started playing football like 3-4 years ago, and he had a ton of juice at the combine. He was all hyped up, and somebody was going to take him. Again, juice, hype, Lions, they all go in the same sentence. If there's a word bag, right? If we're playing some sort of word game, like word association for the Detroit Lions, all of those words kind of go with their, with their culture. He fits. Like, he's going to give them everything he's got. It may not be enough, but he'll give them everything he's got. We'll see. Then you throw a couple guys at the end out of Georgia, and Dan Jackson and Dominic Lovett. Lovett's interesting. Fast receiver that I don't think plays at the speed at which he timed at the combine. Definitely a guy that has some talent, but I don't think ever lived up to the level of talent that he possesses, or at least Georgia thought they were getting. He could be an interesting guy, though, in the 7th round. He could be an interesting guy in the 7th round. Again, this is a Detroit Lions draft. I got nothing but good things to say about it. It feels like a draft that will be impactful for them. One of the things I love watching take place is a team establishing an identity and then sticking to it. And by the time that they've ingrained in your brain what their identity is, you can see it come to fruition as they continue to find players that fit the culture that they've established. These are Detroit Lions players. That's the best compliment you can give a team, is you see a draft and you say, okay, I see what you did there. These are all players that fit your building and your mantra and what you stand for. This looks like a Detroit Lions draft. Green Bay Packers. So this one is interesting because they did the thing that we weren't sure they were ever going to do. And a wise woman once told me, all good things must come to an end. And this streak wasn't very good, but it was a thing that they held up with pride, not taking a first-round receiver since 2002 when they took Javon Walker out of Florida State. That was the last time the Green Bay Packers selected a first-round wide receiver, and they wore that as a badge of honor. Well, their star running back that they just signed in free agency last year said, we need a number 1 receiver. I'm sick of this shit. And it seems like the Packers heard him loud and clear, and they agreed. Brian Gutekunst, their general manager, in Green Bay was the perfect place for them to do it. Broke the long drought of wide receiverless first rounds by taking wide receiver Matthew Golden out of Texas. Love the pick, love the player, love the fit. Some people, don't think he's going to be as good as his draft status suggests. I disagree. I think Matthew Golden is a real number 1. I think he's Stephon Diggs. Excuse me. And so I love this pick, and I think he's going to be a stud. And it's what they need on offense. It's exactly what the doctor ordered. Anthony Belton, tackle out of NC State, was probably like the 6th best tackle in this draft, 6th, 7th best tackle, somewhere in that neighborhood. So makes sense. Not a deep draft class. I thought after Belton, if the draft went according, and it did, they went, and again, like it always does with tackles, they went a little bit earlier than I thought they would go, because that's what tackles do. They get pushed up. I thought there was a little bit of a drop-off after Belton, and they went and got theirs, essentially, in the 2nd round. He's a right tackle only. So, um, third round pick, Savion Williams, really interesting pick. Really interesting pick. I'm fascinated to see what they do with him. This is a very creative Packers offense. I don't know if you watch the Packers a ton and some of their concepts and the things they do. It's not surprising that they're creative because they run a lot of the same concepts. They just do it creatively. And that's what Sean McVay did, and that's, their head coach was in Los Angeles under Sean McVay as his offensive coordinator, or was it he the quarterback's coach, one or the other, for a year or two. And so it makes a ton of sense that their offense would be, dynamic in that way. But they also have a lot of different ways that they, put guys in the backfield and different types of formations, full house formation. And, some of the ways they get to some of their handoffs is pretty unique and cute. And so a guy like Savion Williams makes a ton of sense in Green Bay. And they just got this hodgepodge mixture of, receivers, running backs, and he'll fit in. But I'm anxious to see how they utilize him. Like, is there an emphasis on getting him the ball as a running back, with a smatter of throws at the receiver position, or do they really feature him as a receiver that can get it out of the backfield some, or is it just balanced and they do both? He's such a unique prospect. I love it for Green Bay. I just didn't think they had enough firepower. So now you add two receivers, one that has a unique set of skills and the other who comes in and looks to kind of fortify your receiver group by properly slotting everyone. Jaden Reed was posing as a number one. He's a number two. Now he can go to his proper slot, and Romeo Doubs and the rest of these guys that were number, threes and fours that were posing as twos and threes, they can all go back to where they belong. And all of a sudden, all is right in the world in Green Bay. Barron Sorrell was a guy that I kept talking about during my mock draft process of, this is a guy that's going in the fourth round. I don't understand why he's still here in the sixth and the seventh round, but I'll take him in these mock drafts. But I know this isn't the truth. He's a fourth round pick. I kept telling y'all that he went in the fourth round, right? He's as solid an edge as you're going to find in this draft. Again, none of his traits are going to stand out to you. He's not extra explosive. He's not, he's not 275 pounds. He's not 243. He's in the middle, right? He's not like this sluggish, slow edge. He's not this dynamic first step, explosive edge. He's in the middle, right? He can play up and down the line. They moved him around at Texas, so he can offer you some ability to reduce inside, but he's just really solid. He's going to stop the run, get to the quarterback a little bit for you. I like him in the fourth round. Colin Oliver is interesting. He's another one of these undersized guys that, whoa, there's some juice here. There's some stuff here, but can he turn into a legitimate NFL edge is the question. There have been some injuries and there have been some things that have hampered him. And again, what is he exactly? But ultimately, this is a guy that you draft in the mid to late rounds, right? The fifth round. It's one of those darts you throw. If it works, you're a genius. If it doesn't, it's a fifth round pick. Nobody's tripping. He has a chance to be a gem that you unearth in the fifth round here. We'll see what happens with him. And then the rest of these guys, again, 6th, 7th round picks, throw a dart, see if they stick. Never hurt going into the Georgia store for something, even if it's a rotational defensive tackle. Just get you something, see if it works. If not, you keep it pushing, right? So we'll see if those guys, Michael Robinson, corner out of Tulane, John Williams, offensive lineman out of Cincinnati, work out for the Green Bay Packers. But overall, again, what's the number, right? 4 starters. Golden, Belton, Williams, Sorrell are your 4 guys that you're going to count on in this draft. Golden is going to start. Belton eventually will be your starting right tackle. Savion Williams will be in the game a ton. I won't say he's going to start, but he'll be in the game a ton. They'll find ways to get him involved. And Baron Sorrell, I think, eventually will be a starter for the Green Bay Packers in that Preston Smith type role. So, yeah, this looks good to me, right? This looks like a really solid draft by the Green Bay Packers. Let's go to the Houston Texans, team that has won the AFC South 2 years in a row. Start their draft in the second round, no first round pick. Remember, they traded back into the first round last year. Or was it the year before last? I know they traded back in the year they got CJ Stroud. So it wasn't last year. It was the year before that. They must have done something last year too. Because trading back, I doubt they had to give up a first round pick in 2025 for a move they made in the 2023 draft. So they had to have done something last year. Anyway, first pick, Jaden. Oh, they traded out of the first round. That's what they did. Okay. Because every team had their first round pick in this draft. That's right. It's the first time in the modern NFL since the NFL AFL merger, which is 1970, that every team had their first round pick. So they traded out of the first round. I forget who they traded with. The Giants. That's right. They allowed the Giants to come up and get Jackson Dart. So they traded out of the first round, picked up an additional second round pick, and or picked up, additional picks. They got the pick from the Giants and took Jaden Higgins, wide receiver out of Iowa State. I knew they were going to get a receiver early in this draft. I just didn't know when and who. I'm not as high on Jaden Higgins as some, but I see the talent. I see the potential. They needed somebody opposite of Nico Collins. They needed somebody opposite of Nico Collins. And with Diggs no longer being there, and then the nasty injury to the receiver out of Houston, Tank Dell, which is really unfortunate. That receiver room was bare, man. They had to do something. So it's pretty cool that they doubled up, that they doubled up from the Iowa State store. And like, I gotta imagine that that's a great feeling. Going into the NFL, new situation, you're wide-eyed, you're a rookie, and you get to go in there with your boy that you've been at school with probably for the last 2-3 years. And so you got somebody to go through this with that right? That's pretty dope. That Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel go from Iowa State studs to now the Houston Texans together. That's dope. Sandwiched in between those two, and we'll come back to those two receivers in a second, is Ariante Ursary, who I think a lot of people think is ultimately going to play guard in this league. He's a massive man. I mean, I think you give him an opportunity to play tackle first with his size and his length and all of the things he brings to the table. You give him a chance to play tackle. He's a right tackle more likely than not in the NFL. If that doesn't work, then you just kick him inside at guard, and he'll probably be a damn good guard. So either way, Ariante Ursary is a good pick because they blew up the entire offensive line this offseason. Like, they blew it up, traded guys away, and they're starting from scratch with that offensive line. So they had to do something there, and they did. But to go back to Higgins, he's a big target at 6'4". He can ran a sub 4.5. Big catch radius, can go up and get the football. Good catch after run after the catch. Good body control. He does a lot of good things well, right? I don't see the separation though. A lot of contested catches, but that's fine when you got a bigger frame and you know how to use it. Jalen Noel, he's the opposite. 5'10", 5'11", speedster, 4'3" guy. Make things happen with the ball in his hands, can get vertical. You didn't see a lot of the vertical stuff with him, though. A lot of it was, across the field, shallow crosses, deep over routes, things of that nature. But again, just more speed, more targets for CJ Stroud to get the football to. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love when you take a young quarterback that has shown you that he's capable and you start to build around him. This is what this is, right? The first 3 picks are all about maximizing CJ Stroud. I love it. 3rd round, Jalen Smith, cornerback out of USC. I thought this was a bit early for him, right? I was thinking more day 3, right? I was thinking like 5th round for Jalen Smith at the earliest. To see him go in the 3rd was a little bit shocking, but he must have made an impression on this staff at the Senior Bowl, which he had a really solid week there. And his versatility, can play inside, outside, pretty much play outside all of 2024. But if you watch 2023, you get some safety. And he played some safety in 2024 as well. But he could play nickel, he could play boundary, he could play safety. That kind of versatility is invaluable in the NFL. They've got this excellent secondary, do the Texans, and they're just going to throw him in the mix. I think they probably view him as a nickel because I feel like they got their 2 boundary studs already. The corner from Georgia that they drafted last year who just came in the league and just killed it. And then obviously they just gave my guy from LSU, shucks. I think they just made him the highest paid corner in the league, if I'm not mistaken. And rightfully so. I think he's the best corner in the league. So between those 2 and the safety they got, Kalen Bullocks, last year out of USC. And, one of my favorite players like 3 drafts ago was the safety from Baylor, Jalen Petrie. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he might have just got an extension too. They're loaded in that secondary, and all they were missing was a nickel. Well, I think now they got one in Jalen Smith. So Woody Marks, they stayed at the USC store. Woody Marks, one of the best pass catching. I thought this was early from Woody Marks, but I wasn't the biggest Woody Marks fan anyway. So there's that, right? So they took Woody Marks in the 4th. And I think he's perfect because if you still believe that what you got out of Joe Mixon last year, you can get out of him again, Woody Marks would be a nice compliment to him. Perfect compliment to him. So I like the pick. Thought it was a little bit early, but again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So Woody Marks in the 4th round, good pick. Jalen Reed, I think that was an underrated selection out of Penn State. I really like Jalen Reed, probably better, more than most. So, and again, they're already loaded at safety. Add him to the mix. Graham Mertz is probably one of the most disappointing quarterback prospects, not named DJ Ugalele, in the last 5 years. Right? Graham Mertz came in with all this fanfare and all this hype and was awful at Wisconsin, maybe slightly better at Florida, but I'm shocked he got drafted, to be honest with you. This is all about traits, because this has nothing to do with production. And this is all about, hey, he's got traits that we think we can work with. So we'll see. And then last 2 picks, Keontae Hamilton out of Rutgers, defensive tackle, and Luke Lachey, tight end out of Iowa. Solid picks to round out the draft, but this is a really good draft by the Texans, man. When you think about the 2 receivers out of Iowa State, and Higgins and Noel, Ursary sandwiched in between, that's going to help, rebuild that offensive line from the ground up. Jalen Smith, I thought it was a little early, but man, that secondary is loaded, and he's just going to add to what is already one of the best, if not the best secondary in the league. Woody Marks is going to be a good complement to Joe Mixon. Jalen Reed, again, depth in that safety room, in that secondary that's already loaded. I mean, shit. That's 3 starters right there in your first 3 picks. Smith is going to come in. I think he's going to start at nickel eventually. Although Petrie plays a lot of nickel for them, but he's more of a like a enforcer down there in the nickel spot. He's more of a physical down in the box safety than he is, a guy you drop over the slot type of nickel. So Smith, I think, could easily come in there and man it up for him there. And Marks is going to have a role on that team. That's 5 guys that you're going to be relying on, I think, in year one. And 3 of them are starters right out of the gate, maybe a 4th if Smith can somehow find his way onto the field as a nickel. So this is a really good draft. Again, there weren't many teams that I looked at and said, because this was a draft where it was not like the talent wasn't ridiculous at the top, but the 2nd to 4th round in particular was like, it was gold. If you were a team that you already had the high end talent thing solidified and you just need guys to build around, this was the draft for you. Colts. They're a team every year that I look at and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I like the stuff. So they're the team that I like the stuff that they drafted. I never love it. I love the stuff they drafted this year for the first time in about maybe 7-8 years. I actually love the stuff that they've drafted. Every year I'm like, oh, that's nice. He's okay. That's cool. I love Tyler Warren. I love JT Tuimalu. I love DJ Giddens. And to a lesser degree, I love the Riley Leonard pick. So let's talk about what they did here. This is a really, really good draft. Tyler Warren, didn't expect him to be there at 14. Thought he would be the first tight end taken. We talked about that when Chicago took Colston Loveland. It was a bit of a shock that he wasn't the first tight end off the board. And the Colts were more than satisfied. They were thrilled that he was there. They would have taken either one, but they thought they were going to get Colston Loveland. They got Tyler Warren. He fits in Indy. It's what they need at the tight end position. I love the pick for him because tight end is the best friend of a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. Like, they got 2 guys battling for one position. Both of them are mid at this point. One's been a disappointment in Indy. The other was a disappointment in New York. Both former first-round picks. We'll see if either one of them is able to put it together for the Colts this year. Bottom line is, the best friend of a quarterback is the tight end. So whomever's there, this is going to help them immensely. JT Tuimalu is a guy that I just think he's going to be a good 10 to 12 year pro in this league because he just does everything above average, and he's smart, and he knows how to play the game. Black belt in hand-to-hand combat, finds the football. He's like a more diverse and physical Andrew Van Ginkel, right? I'd said he's like Kyle Van Noy, the back end of Kyle Van Noy's career, where all of a sudden Kyle Van Noy is getting like 10 sacks a year, and you're like, what the hell is going on? At this stage of your career, you're getting 10 sacks all of a sudden when you never did it before? Because he figured it out. Well, to me, Tuimalu already figured it out coming into the league as a rookie. And remember, they drafted Latu last year, so now you got bookend edge rushers. I love it. This is slam dunk pick here. And this is right where he was supposed to come off the board in the 2nd round. Justin Wally, cornerback out of Minnesota, is undersized, like at 5'10", like a buck 80, 85. Boy, can he find the football, though. He's a bit handsy for me. But that ball production, that aggressive, and I told you, in this draft, what you will find is a bunch of guys with eyes that are elite. But when you have elite eyes, they can be cheating eyes as well. That leaves you susceptible to double moves, because when you're aggressive and you're attacking the football downhill, All that means is you see the out, you jump in the out. Well, if it's an out and up, SpaghettiOs. But Wally is a corner that has great movement skills, tremendous ball skills, can run, everything you're looking for. He's just undersized, and he's a bit handsy when he's down the field, which I think could lead to penalties. But ultimately, you love the ball production. And I have no issue, with the pick in the third round, because I felt like once you got to the third round, you were going to see a somewhat of a drop off at the cornerback position, and that's what happened, right? So he's solid. I don't love it in the third. I think he's more of a fourth round corner, but again, you're splitting hairs here. Potatoes, whatever, right? Jalen Travis, tackle out of Iowa State. This is a big man, a big man. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm thinking about the right person, I think this dude's like 6'8", 340. This dude is massive, I think. I could be thinking about the wrong guy, but I think this guy's humongous. He's obviously, anybody with those kinds of measurables, there are limitations when you're that big, you're that tall, you don't bend well, right? Usually the movement skills aren't elite, but the length, this guy's, I think, 6'8", 340, 35-inch arms. Again, I could be talking about the wrong guy. I just feel like I'm thinking about the right guy, I believe. And I remember watching him because I watched the Iowa State wide receivers a bunch. So I just remember, like, he is massive. The Colts have done a really good job along the offensive line over the years. After the whole Andrew Luck debacle, it was funny because as soon as Andrew Luck retired, they fixed the offensive line finally. And they've been a really solid group, it feels like, for the better part of the last 5-6 years. So throw him in the mix, see what he becomes. My favorite pick of their draft, you know why, is DJ Giddens in the 5th round. He was in the top 5 of my running back group. Giddens was a guy that I was really excited about. I said he was great value Todd Gurley. And I think he has a chance. And here's the thing that I've always struggled with Indy is it's either JT money or bust at the running back position. They've put a bunch of nasty, dirty, germ-infested Band-Aids on the running back position whenever JT money hasn't been healthy. And I'm like, that's the best you can do at the running back position? Knowing your quarterback position ain't shit? This is the best you could do behind JT money? You haven't invested in this? Well, now they have. And if he gets hurt and he can't play, they got a dog at running back in DJ Giddens. I love it. Love this pick. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. It's one of the best 5th round picks in this entire draft. Because of the fit, because of what they need him to be, and for what he's gonna be for them. I mean, how much longer can JT Money carry the burden in Indy anyway? He's already had some injury concerns. He came into the league with like 10 million carries coming out of Wisconsin. Giddens is the perfect antidote there, I think. And he's just scratching the surface. That's part of the reason he's here in the 5th is because he's raw, right? He's been playing a running back position for like 2 years, 3 years. So give him another year or two. He's going to be a problem. I love this pick. Speaking of loving a pick, I'm not a Riley Leonard fan. I'm not. But if you're going to have Daniel Jones on your roster, you should have Riley Leonard on your roster too. Because they're the same guy. So I love this. Like, why not put Riley Leonard on the same roster with Daniel Jones? Because they're the same guy. Riley Leonard was a great captain at Notre Dame. He was excellent at Duke before transferring. Not the best arm, obviously. Doesn't always make the right decisions with the football, but he's tough as nails. He'll run it. He'll compete, man. And it was perfect place for him. Indy is the perfect place for him. They got a smorgasbord of quarterbacks, and Riley Leonard deserves to be in that mix with those guys that they currently already have. Never can go wrong in the later rounds taking a rotational defensive lineman from Georgia or Alabama. You just can't go wrong, right? Hunter Wohler, out of Wisconsin linebacker, is their final pick. But this is a really good draft for the Indianapolis Colts. One of the best I've seen from them in what feels like 4 years or so. Warren in the first round, slam dunk home run. JT Tuimalu, slam dunk home run in the second round. Wally, solid pick. Jalen Travis, intriguing pick in the fourth round. DJ Giddens, slam dunk home run in the fifth round. Riley Leonard, I like the pick in the sixth round. So I talked about getting starters. You should come away with at least 4. They got 3 that I see here. Travis could make it 4, but Giddens and his impact and what he can be is the 4th guy for me. Because I see Warren Tuimalu and Wally all being guys that they're going to be counting on, sooner rather than later. Giddens is a guy that's obviously, going to be behind JT Money, but look out for DJ Giddens. And I just like the Riley Leonard pick because it fits. So anyway, I digress. Like this Colts draft. I like it a lot. All right. It feels better than the ones I've seen from them in the past. Jacksonville Jaguars. All right. This is, first of all, I like their general manager. He's young, he's vibrant, and he just don't give a this first pick right out of the Gates was stunning to trade up to 2 for Travis Hunter. I get it. It's Jacksonville. They're the team most likely to be relocated in the NFL. You need buzz. You need a name. They're selling Travis Hunter jerseys like hotcakes right now. And he's a good football player. That helps too. But their general manager, the press conference after they did this was A1. It's the stuff legends are made of, right? I would put it a step below we bite kneecaps, right? Where he came out and he said, I'm qualified. He said, I came out of the F them picks program because he came from LA with the Rams and Les Snead, Trader Les, as we like to call him. And we all know about the F them picks program. He said, I'm a student of the F them picks program. So if anybody's qualified to come out of the gates and be like F them picks, it's me. I said, oh, you a G. I don't know if this shit's going to work, but I like your style. So Travis Hunter, right out of the gates. I don't know how I feel about this for Jacksonville. First of all, let me say this. Jacksonville has been a team that I have loved their drafts. Sort of like Cincinnati. They just get it. They get talent. They don't always do what they're supposed to do with said talent, but they get it, right? They draft guys that you feel good about. Now, how guys perform once they get here, different story. But the guys, when you were in the process scouting these players and you went, man, I really like this guy. Man, I really like that guy. They get them in the draft normally. This is not that type of draft for me. But there are a few names that stand out to me. So Travis Hunter, obviously, going to play both sides of the ball. I want to see to what extent they're hell-bent on putting him on both sides. So we're going to see how this turns out. Hunter is hell-bent on playing both sides. Again, you can't. This isn't college. This isn't Colorado. You got to pick a side, bro. But we'll see how long this shit lasts, because I can't see it lasting very long, even if they do try to experiment with it. He's not going to hold up. Soaking wet, this man is 190 pounds, if that. This shit is probably 185 soaking wet, 188, 190. This shit ain't gonna hold up for long, but he's a hell of an athlete. Hell of an athlete. My only gripe with this is you're Jacksonville. You're not close. Trading for Travis Hunter is a move you make when you're close. Like, let me go get this guy. He may be the final piece we need. This is a luxury pick that I just don't feel like the Jacksonville Jaguars have. But here's the beauty of the situation. You're playing the AFC South. Who's stopping you? Right? Why the hell not? Why the hell not? It's the Titans, the Colts, the Texans. Why not? Shit. Why not? So no second round pick because of the Hunter trade. No first round pick next year because of the Hunter trade. See how it works out for them. They get Caleb Ransall in the third round. I don't love this pick. I don't love the player, but I told you this in the process leading up that he's not my kind of corner. I don't get excited about his type of play. However, I saw a corner in the same mold come into the league and have tremendous success in his rookie season, and it changes the way I view Caleb Ransall. The Giants drafted the Kentucky corner last year in the third round, I believe, too. Same round, if I'm not mistaken. And Giants fans didn't like it initially. I told them, hey, that was a dumb pick. And then he proceeded to have a tremendous rookie season. He's physical. Ransall tackles. You can blitz him. You can do a lot of stuff with Caleb Ransall. He's not the greatest guy in coverage, similar to the corner that the Giants took last year out of Kentucky in the third round, who was extremely raw. But if you can tackle and you're physical and you do a lot of good things, you can overcompensate for the fact that you're not the greatest guy in coverage. Wyatt Mealham, guard out of West Virginia, solid pick. Got no issues there. You moved on from Brandon Sheriff. You need somebody to fill in. Wyatt Mealham can do exactly that. That's a plug-and-play guard that you just drafted. You move on. Bayshole Tootin, love the pick. Love the pick. Love the athlete. Love what you're getting. You're getting explosiveness. I said that the Jaguars already have it back. When people said to me, they're going to draft Genty, I said, why? 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 Why would you do that? I like the back that they got. I like him a lot. He just needs a running mate because he's not fast. He does everything else. He's just not fast. And as much as we wanted Travis Etienne to be that guy, he's not. Not anymore. He can't stay healthy and fumbles too much. And we got to move on. I said he fumbles too much, and then you draft Bayshole Tootin. Scootin' tootin', as my guy Rio likes to say. So the fumbling thing might still be an issue, but boy, can he go. Boy, can he go. I love it. Jack Kaiser, linebacker out of Notre Dame, is extremely solid. He is so limited athletically, though. But he knows his limitations. He knows where to be. And he knows I'm not fast. So I got to know what the opposition is doing before they do it so that I can be fast to the football. Because just off of sheer athleticism, I'm not going to win that race. So good guy, studies, plays hard, does the right things. But again, I don't know if I would have taken him in the fourth round. Jalen McLeod, linebacker out of Auburn. Now we're talking about a little bit more speed, but not as instinctive as a Jack Kaiser. Not as football smart, but a better athlete. So, we'll see how that goes. Lane out of Navy is a, guy that was talked about a lot at the combine. and solid football player. Think he's going to be special teams. And then, maybe down the line, he may be able to weasel his way into the lineup. Monheim out of USC at the center position. Cool, whatever. I just want to get to the last guy, LaQuint Allen, who I absolutely love. And I told you he was great value, Travion Henderson. The only thing he didn't do was run fast. And in a draft class full of guys that could run fast and had a lot of elite traits, he didn't. He was really good at pass protection, but he wasn't Travion Henderson. He was really good at catching the ball out of the backfield, but he wasn't Travion Henderson or some of these other backs that can catch it out of the backfield. He wasn't Woody Marks, right? He is really good in between the tackles, right? But he's not dynamic. You can get it to him out in space, but he's not dynamic. And so he does all these things, but he's not dynamic at any of them. But he's really good, I would say above average at all of them. Except for speed. And that's a problem for most people. And so I think they got themselves a steal in the 7th round. And I told you there were 3 positions that you could find yourself a starter still, a quality player still, all the way through to the 7th round. Interior defensive line, interior offensive line, and running back. Case in point, LaQuint Allen, 7th round. I think they got a steal. I think they have themselves a steal. So when you look at this draft, it's not the typical Jacksonville Jaguars draft where I walk away saying, man, they killed it. But they got some good football players. Travis Hunter, really good football player. Wyatt Mealham, really good football player. Bashal Tootin, really good football player. LaQuint Allen, really good football player. Caleb Ransall is going to be the guy that makes or breaks this draft, I believe. If he turns out to be really good, then we're going to look back and say this is a really good draft. If he doesn't, it's all right. It's all right. You're relying at that point on a 7th round pick to pull up the rear of this draft and make it palatable. That's not how you want to live. If you've got all these picks, they got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks. And we're talking about a 7th rounder having to be the guy that pulls this thing together. It can't be. You need Caleb Ransall to be good, because if he's good, then your first 4 picks are good. If he's not, I don't know. I don't know if this draft turns out to be what they want it to be. And Travis Hunter, for that matter, needs to be what they need him to be. You traded away your 2nd round pick and next year's 1st round pick for Travis Hunter. He better be what you drafted him to be, what you traded up for him to be. So, all in all, that's a good draft for the Jaguars. Not what I'm used to from them, but still got a lot of talent. Last team we're going to look at today on the pod. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs. Man. We can't keep letting them. We cannot keep letting them do this shit, man. You can't keep letting them do this shit. Shout out to Brett Veach. You can't keep letting them do this shit and want them to fall back. You can't keep letting them do this shit. Last year, they had a strong draft. Guys that you didn't see last year, you'll see eventually. They'll surface and they'll be making plays like, where the hell they get that dude from? Oh, they just stashed him away. They drafted him last year. You cannot keep letting them do this shit, man. You want the Chiefs to go away? Stop letting them get these kind of players with these picks. This is an A++++ draft. This is one of the best drafts. 7 players. And even Jeffrey Bassa, who is the worst player in this draft class, could end up being good for them as an off-the-ball athletic linebacker. He's a little mechanical, right? And not always from a football intellect standpoint, quick to get it, but the traits are there. Shit. Josh Simmons, if not for the injury, probably the best tackle in this entire draft class. But there is an injury. There are some concerns. We'll see what it turns out to be. But the weakest part of the Chiefs team right now is their offensive line. You just let them potentially get a bookend left tackle. The thing that they struggle with the most, the thing that has hurt them the most, is their offensive line. Left tackle to be exact. And yet they may end up with one of the best, if not the best, tackle in this draft class. Nice. Omar Norman Lott. Problem. Athletically gifted problem on the defensive line for Tennessee. A little undersized, don't matter. He'll get in your mix, blow shit up, get in the backfield, stout at the point of attack. Yeah, that checks, right? That plays. Ashton Gelati. Been talking about him all draft process. Kind of a weird body, right? Kind of pudgy, doesn't necessarily get you excited by the way he looks from the eye test standpoint, but he can play. And you know what? He fits the Kansas City Chief edge rusher. Like, I don't know if they've had an edge rusher since D Ford that I looked at and I was like, yo, he looked like he a problem. They get these dudes that don't necessarily fit the prototypical look of an edge. Like, for instance, the Karlaftis kid, he doesn't look like he's supposed to be kicking anybody's ass, right? He's solid, I guess. Man, Karlaftis be putting dudes' dick in the dirt. And they stay finding a dude like this. And I think they just got one in Ashton Gelati. I think he's a good football player, especially if you watch the 2023 tape. Noel Williams. The Chiefs don't draft corners well. They find corners. Undrafted, late in the draft. They just find guys. And then if you discard something you don't like, they go and rescue it off the streets and clean it up. They can coach up corners, though. Boy, can they coach them up. They don't miss, it seems like, with corners. Noel Williams, he ain't the fastest, but boy, does he know how to find the football. He could be really good in Kansas City. And it wouldn't shock me if we look up 3 years from now and Noel Williams has a 7-interception season for the Chiefs. You can't keep letting them do this shit if you want them to go away. Jalen Royals in the 4th round. Are you kidding me? What are we doing right now? How does this happen? How? I guess my Commanders are partly responsible for this. Sure. We'll take a little bit of the blame. We could have taken Royals off the board. He was there, right? We instead took a punt returner. I have no issues with it, no qualms whatsoever. But we deserve some of the blame. But we're not alone. Royals is a damn good receiver here. And somehow he's sitting here in the 4th round. And no disrespect to Jack Besh, but somehow he goes in the 2nd, but we let Jalen Royals fall to the 4th round to the Kansas City Chiefs? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. I don't know, but stop asking. I don't know why. Stop asking. How does this happen? I don't know why. Stop asking. I don't know. That's a home run in the 4th round. I already talked about Jeffrey Bassa. He's the least of all of these picks, and he still could turn out to be a good player for them. And then, Lord have mercy, Brashard Smith in the 7th round out of SMU. Oh, my God. You got to be effing kidding me. You got to be effing kidding me. I told you there were 3 positions that you could find guys all the way through to the 7th round. Running back is one of them. Here's another case in point. Bashard Smith. First year playing a running back position at SMU. Extremely raw. And I said this during my draft prospects one-on-one series about him. Either the NFL was going to view him as extremely raw and needs time to develop, or they were going to say, man, the upside is incredible. Only 1 year of production. Let's take this guy early. They went with the, oh, he's too raw. Let somebody else deal with that shit. I don't know. Maybe outside of, I don't know, Sean Payton, maybe. I don't know of a team that will utilize Bashard Smith and his many traits and qualities better than the Chiefs. This is a former wide receiver with 4.3 speed playing running back. They used to make Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's a 4.6 guy, look dominant out of the backfield as a pass catcher. What the hell do you think they're going to do with Bashard Smith? How much 4.3 speed do you want them to have in their backfield anyway? They already got a guy that they stole in the 7th round in Isaiah Pacheco. He wasn't right last year, had an injury. He's fully healthy. We know what Pacheco is. Now you're going to give him another 4.3 running back in the backfield? Again, make it make sense. Going to give them Jalen Royals at wide receiver, Bashard Smith in the 7th round, continue to reshape their offensive line by getting Josh Simmons, and then a bunch of quality defenders in rounds 2 and 3. I told you if you had picks in the first 4 rounds, you can get yourself, however many picks you have, you can get you that many starters. Simmons, starter. Norman Lott, starter. Gelati, starter. Williams, starter. Royals, starter. 5 picks in the first 4 rounds, they got 5 starters. And not just any old starters, guys that could end up being Pro Bowlers in this league. Not to mention Bashard Smith, who's going to be a contributor along the way. A massive one, I think, when it's all said and done. God damn the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a tremendous draft. You ain't got to love the Chiefs, but you got to love this draft. That's for damn sure. Yikes. Well, that's where we're going to stop today. We'll pick up where we left off next podcast episode. Do have a couple of comments to get to real quick before we get out of here. Kevin, my guy, Kevin. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Kevin, thank you for being a member of the MOBB for 10 months. My guy, Kevin writes, thought Goot did well, gave MLF some weapons and O-line. Look, I thought he did solid as well. No, more than solid. I loved the 2 receiver picks. I loved the pick on the O-line of Belton out of NC State. I thought it was a little early for Belton, but you had to go for yours at the tackle position because there was a drop-off, I felt like, after Belton at the tackle position. So he was probably the last. It might have been one more after him that I would have been comfortable with, but he was the last of a not-so-good group to begin with. You needed to grab it while it was still there. So really like that pick. The 2 receivers, though, very intrigued by them. Love that you finally took a first-round true number one wide receiver. I think you did some really good things in the draft. I really do. And I also like Baron Sorrell, your 4th-round pick. So I thought the first 4, which is where you needed to kill it in this draft, the first 4 rounds, you did it. I thought he did well as well, Kevin. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, C-Mac, writes, hey, Lou. Sup, C? Says, hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, Chris. Likewise. Congrats on episode 500, man. I appreciate that. The big 500. 2 questions, 1 and 2. what were the 3 biggest steals in the drafts and surprises for you and why? So honestly, I'm just looking at all of these drafts. I haven't really looked at these drafts before. Right now, like my initial reactions are what you're seeing live to these drafts. Like I can't tell you what the Tennessee Titans selected in this draft. I can't tell you what the New England. Only the guys that I remember from the first couple of rounds where I was live while the draft was happening. I can't tell you what the Titans did in the 4th round or the 5th round or the 6th round. So I can't tell you who got the biggest. I can tell you that, you know, the Chiefs. I love their draft so far. Like them and the Bears right now, the 2 best drafts, if you ask me right now. They're I'm pretty sure when I'm done with this whole process, I'll be able to answer that question and tell you what are, I'm going to tell you right now, some of these 7th round backs, some of these guys that went later in the draft, I think are going to ultimately be really good players and end up being some big time steals potentially. I do know because, I wanted this guy and we didn't take him, but the Chiefs got Braden, the edge rusher out of LSU in the 5th round. I think that's going to turn out to be a steal. I was a big Braden Swinson guy, and I thought Braden Swinson was a 3rd round pick, and somehow he ended up in the 5th. So the league spoke. They wasn't feeling Braden Swinson. That's cool. We'll see what he turns out to be, and maybe I'm wrong about Braden Swinson, but again, I got to look at everybody's selections first before I can answer that question. But man, it's going to be some steals for sure. And I think a lot of them are going to come at the running back position. A lot of 7th round and 6th round backs getting taken. Like Devin Neal, I think got drafted in the 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Either the 5th or the 6th to New Orleans. I think that could be a steal. And again, a lot of times when guys fall, it's because they're not fast. I think Devin Neal's a really good back. A really good back. So we'll see. I mean, it could easily be Will Johnson falling to the 2nd round to the Arizona Cardinals. This is a guy that I could have seen going to the Raiders at 7 or 6 or wherever the hell the Raiders were picking. And he ends up at 40 something to the Cardinals. I mean, we'll see what that turns out to be. Kevin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes. Did you see Golden's going to be wearing 22? He's a bust. No, I didn't see that. What in the hell possessed him to want to go and do that? Now, why you want to go and do that goal, huh? Now, why you want to go and do that and do that? What made him want to do that? 22? Double deuce? Ugh, that's nasty. At the running back? I mean, at the receiver position? I'm trying to think. When's the last time we saw a beast receiver wear 20 in the 20s? Now, the league just started allowing receivers to wear 20 numbers. It used to be you were either 0 to 19 or 80 to 89. So they just opened the door for guys to be able to wear the 20s. Is Rashid Shaheed in New Orleans in the 20s? I really feel like he's like 22 or some shit like that. If he is, then there's your answer right there. Because Rashid Shaheed is a beast. That's a tough sell though. That don't even look good on a jersey, right? Like you can't cop a golden 22 jersey. I don't want that shit. Like I can't show up at the game with that shit on, right? Oh man, he's not a bust. Stop it, Kevin. But that wasn't a great choice. If that is legit, and I trust you, that's nasty work. That's really disgusting stuff right there. But I digress. Anyway, that is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 500th Celebrate 500th episode of the Louie T Network podcast. It's been a wonderful journey to this point, to this landmark episode of 500, and now we get back to the business of the business, and hopefully we'll get to the next 500 and get to 1,000, and we're really going to celebrate the 1,000th episode. 500 is a big number. It's definitely a milestone, but 1,000 will be one that I will absolutely take a second to really like let it sink in. Who knows how long it's going to take me to get to 500? I mean, 1,000 though. I mean, this podcast used to be, at one point, it started off as every day. Then it went from every day to 3 days a week. And then now it's like whenever. Because I want it to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But there's a lot of shit going on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then it's like, okay, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out a way to get 3. As long as you get 3, that's the number. Then it became, well, as long as you get 2. And now it's like, as long as you just get 1. So I got to get back to getting 3 in a week, and maybe we'll get to 1,000 sooner rather than later. But if we keep up at the pace we're at right now, we'll get to 1,000 in the year 20. The Commanders will be in their new stadium before we get to 1,000 if we keep it up at this rate. So I had to get on my horse, man, and giddy up. Anyway, I digress, man. Thank you guys for all the support and for being here for a good portion of this journey. And look forward to seeing you guys for the next 500 episodes. In any event, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. On the first part of this 2025 draft breakdown, we'll get to the final 16 teams in this draft on the next episode and break down their drafts and talk about what they were able to accomplish. We really haven't seen any drafts that aren't good. Maybe some that I'm, not as thrilled by, but there's no, man, this draft stinks. I don't think anybody had a draft that stunk, because that's the type of draft that this was. You were going to stumble into some good football players. Just too many of them for you not to pick 3 or 4 of them, right? I say that. I haven't seen all the drafts. There may be one where I'm like, what is this? What is this shit? I haven't seen one yet. So thank you to everyone who has sent congratulations in the comment section. I really appreciate all of you. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Enjoy the rest of your evening. God bless. Good night.